Speak less than you know, listen more than you hear. This is a timeless principle that carries an almost magnetic power in human interaction. At its core, it's about restraint and presence, the ability to hold back your own need to be heard while absorbing far more than just the words others speak. Most people listen only to reply, filtering conversations through their own ego and preparing their next statement before the other person has even finished. But true influence comes from the opposite approach, saying less, revealing less, and listening so deeply that you understand not just what is said, but everything that lies beneath it. When you speak less, every word you choose carries weight. You become the person who talks with purpose, not just to fill silence, and that scarcity makes others pay closer attention. It also protects you. What you don't reveal cannot be used against you. In negotiations, relationships, or high-stakes environments, this silence becomes a shield, letting others reveal themselves while you stay unreadable. Listening more than you hear requires moving past the surface of conversation. It means noticing tone shifts, hesitations, contradictions, and the emotions hidden between sentences. You're not just hearing their story. You're watching their body language, sensing their energy, and catching the truths they didn't intend to share. People reveal far more when they feel truly heard, and in those moments, they hand you the keys to understanding their fears, desires, and motives. This balance, holding your tongue while sharpening your ears, turns you into someone others trust instinctively, yet can never fully predict. And in a world where everyone fights to speak, the one who listens most deeply becomes the one who holds the real power. The loudest voice is rarely the wisest volume, has a way of tricking people into mistaking noise for authority. In a world where confidence is often confused with competence, those who shout the loudest can dominate the room, not because they know more, but because they drown out every other voice. Their certainty becomes contagious, their presence overwhelming, and slowly the crowd forgets to question whether their words carry truth or just air. True wisdom doesn't need to fight for attention. It draws people in through depth, not decibels. The quiet observer, the one who speaks only after listening and weighing every angle, often holds insights that could cut through the chaos like a blade. But their power lies in timing, not in volume. They let the noise swell and fade, then deliver their thoughts with precision, making each word impossible to ignore. The danger of the loud voice is how it shapes perception. In arguments, debates, or public discourse, the sheer force of sound can silence better ideas before they're even heard. It creates an illusion of certainty, convincing the unsure that confidence equals correctness. But confidence can be a mask, and volume can be a shield for fragile reasoning. Those who listen closely learn to see past the performance. They notice the gaps, the contradictions, the moments where noise replaces knowledge. And when the shouting stops, it's the quiet, steady voices that remain, the ones who weren't scrambling to be heard, but waiting for the right moment to speak with clarity, substance, and the kind of truth that doesn't need to be shouted to be believed. Wealth is measured by what can't be taken from you. Possessions can vanish in an instant, stolen, destroyed, or lost to forces beyond your control. Status can crumble, money can evaporate, and the life you've built on fragile foundations can be gone before you can catch your breath. Real wealth isn't in what fills your hands, but in what lives within you and cannot be stripped away. Skills, wisdom, resilience. These are currencies no one can steal. A person who knows how to rebuild will never truly be poor, because loss is temporary when the ability to create remains. The knowledge in your mind, the relationships built on trust, the strength of your character, these endure through storms that wipe away everything else. The illusion of wealth traps many into chasing things that can be owned but not kept. A fortune in the bank feels secure until the market shifts. A house feels permanent until disaster strikes. Even relationships built on convenience or appearance can vanish when tested, but the wealth rooted in your abilities, your integrity, and your will cannot be repossessed. The most dangerous thieves are not always people. They are time, circumstance, and betrayal. They strip away what you thought defined you, leaving only what's real. Those who have invested in themselves, in their growth, in their adaptability, emerge not as victims but as survivors who carry their wealth wherever they go. When everything external is gone, what's left is the truest measure of what you've built, and whether you've built something no one else can touch. Anger is a poison brewed for others, but swallowed by you. It starts as a spark, someone's words, actions, or betrayal igniting a fire in your chest. You replay the moment over and over, crafting sharper comebacks, imagining the justice you'll serve. You think you're holding that anger for them, as if your fury will somehow scorch the person who wronged you. But while you wait for them to feel its burn, it's you who drinks it daily. Anger is deceptive because it feels powerful. The heat surging through you can feel like control, like strength, like proof you haven't been defeated. Yet the longer you hold it, the more it seeps into everything, your sleep, your focus, your joy. It doesn't just live in your mind, it coils into your body, wearing you down with tension you don't notice until it's already shaped you. Meanwhile, the person you're angry at may not even know, or worse, they know and don't care. You've built a prison they never enter, but you pace it every day, shackled to the thing you swore you'd never let define you. That's the cruelty of anger. It convinces you that feeding it will hurt them, when it's quietly hollowing you out instead. The truth is, releasing anger isn't about letting them win. It's about stopping the slow drip of poison you've been swallowing, mistaking it for strength. You can't control the wound they cause, but you can decide whether to keep drinking what's killing you from the inside. Patience outlives power. Power often arrives with noise, loud voices, sudden changes, quick victories that seem unshakable in the moment. It thrives on urgency, on making others move before they've had time to think. But the rush that builds it is also what makes it fragile. Power without patience burns fast and bright, then flickers out when the tide shifts. Patience, however, is steady. It waits in the shadows while the loudest forces exhaust themselves. Those who master patience understand that time itself is a weapon. They don't need to push every moment or win every battle. They know that opportunities repeat, that storms pass, and that strength isn't proven in how quickly you act, but in how long you can endure. While power demands immediate recognition, patience demands only the discipline to wait until the moment is right. And when that moment comes, it strikes with precision that brute force can't match. History is filled with those who held on to patience and outlasted empires, regimes, and enemies who seemed unstoppable. In relationships, the patient outlasts the manipulative because they don't get pulled into impulsive traps. In negotiations, they let others reveal too much, make mistakes, or burn themselves out trying to dominate too quickly. Power can be seized, stolen, or lost overnight. Patience can't be taken. It can only be surrendered. And those who refuse to surrender it carry an advantage that grows silently over time, until the day the impatient find themselves empty-handed, facing the quiet persistence that has been watching, waiting, and preparing all along. A promise is a debt written on the soul. When you give your word, you create something invisible yet binding, an agreement that lives not on paper, but in the quiet chambers of your conscience. Unlike money owed, this debt cannot be measured in numbers or repaid with interest. It is a piece of your integrity entrusted to another. The moment you speak a promise, it becomes part of you, a mark etched into the unseen ledger of your character. Promises carry weight because they aren't just about the future. They shape who you are in the present. Keeping them strengthens the spine of your reputation, proving that your words are worth more than convenience. Breaking them, however, leaves a fracture that no apology can fully mend. Others may forget, but you will carry the echo of it, a reminder of when you traded your honor for comfort, fear, or selfish gain. Some promises are made lightly, tossed out in moments of emotion or haste, but the soul doesn't distinguish between casual and solemn. It records them all. That is why broken promises haunt us. They are debts unpaid, chains that rattle quietly when we try to rest. The most dangerous promises are the ones you make to yourself. When you betray those, you erode your own trust. And without that, even the promises you keep to others ring hollow. To live with a clear soul is to honor the commitments you forge with your words, because each one is a thread in the fabric of your identity. And once torn, it can never be mended the same way again. A reputation takes years to build and seconds to lose. Reputation is one of the most fragile forms of currency a person can hold. It's built slowly, almost invisibly, layer by layer, moment by moment, through choices made when no one is watching and promises kept when they could have been broken. It is the sum of countless small actions that quietly tell the world who you are, and yet all it takes is one reckless decision, one careless word, one moment of weakness to shatter what took years to create. The danger lies in how quickly trust can turn. People rarely measure the weight of your good deeds. They remember the moments you faltered. The human mind clings to betrayal more tightly than loyalty, to failure more vividly than success. A single breach becomes the lens through which all your past actions are reinterpreted, and suddenly the years of integrity behind you feel erased in the eyes of others. Reputation is powerful because it moves ahead of you. It opens doors before you arrive, earns you opportunities without asking, and shields you from suspicion when mistakes happen. But that same power means its loss is devastating. You don't just lose what you had, you inherit the shadow of the story now told about you. The cruelest part is that repair is never equal to the damage. You can spend years trying to rebuild trust and still find that the crack remains, and so every choice becomes more than a moment. It becomes a thread in the fabric of who the world believes you are, a fabric that's far easier to tear than it is to weave again. Gratitude multiplies what it touches. A single moment of genuine gratitude can transform how you see the world. It takes what is ordinary and makes it glow, what is scarce and makes it feel abundant, what is fragile and makes it precious. Gratitude doesn't create more in a physical sense, it creates more in the mind, and the mind shapes everything. When you focus on what you have instead of what's missing, you stop measuring life by its gaps and start noticing its gifts. That shift changes your energy, and that energy changes how people respond to you. A thankful person draws more generosity, more kindness, and more opportunities, not because the world suddenly alters, but because gratitude sharpens your vision to see what was always there. It's also contagious. Expressing appreciation can soften hardened hearts, heal strained connections, and inspire others to give more of themselves. When someone feels valued, they often want to give you more to be grateful for. The smallest acknowledgement, a thank you, a word of praise, an unspoken look of appreciation can ripple outward far beyond what you see. But the real power of gratitude is how it rewires your inner life. It turns survival into living, stress into perspective, and fleeting moments into memories worth keeping. Even in hardship, finding something to appreciate can keep despair from consuming you. It's not denial of pain, it's the decision to see more than just the pain. And over time, what you choose to see becomes what fills your life, until you realize that gratitude hasn't just changed your perspective, it has quietly multiplied your entire world. A man who masters himself masters the world. Control over others is fleeting. Control over yourself is unshakable. The world will throw you into storms, provoking you, tempting you, trying to drag you into battles you didn't choose. Most people are ruled by those forces, reacting to every insult, impulse, and fear like puppets yanked by invisible strings. But the one who masters himself cannot be pulled so easily. He chooses his actions instead of being driven by emotion, and in that choice lies an authority that no one can take. Self-mastery is not suppression, it is command. It's the ability to feel anger without being consumed by it, to feel fear without letting it decide your next step, to want something deeply but still walk away if it costs too much. This level of control terrifies manipulators and rivals because they cannot provoke, seduce, or intimidate you into surrendering your position. The world bends toward those who cannot be swayed. Leaders who master themselves make better decisions under pressure. Warriors who master themselves outlast enemies who burn their strength in fury. Even in everyday life, those who hold their ground while others lose their balance quietly take control of the field. To master yourself is to master timing, desire, and reaction. You no longer chase what doesn't serve you, nor do you crumble under what tries to break you. And when you move, you do so with the certainty that it's on your terms, turning the chaos of the world into a game you've already learned how to win. Never argue with someone who enjoys chaos. There are people who don't enter arguments to resolve them. They enter to feed on them. For them, conflict isn't a problem to solve. It's a playground. They thrive on the emotional storm, the raised voices, the endless back and forth, because in chaos, they feel at home and in control. The more tangled the conversation becomes, the more power they gain, while you burn energy trying to create order where none is wanted. Arguing with someone like this is like wrestling in quicksand. The harder you fight, the deeper you sink. They will twist your words, bait your emotions, and drag you into side tangents until the original point is lost. Their goal isn't truth, it's disruption. They measure winning not by who's right, but by who's most exhausted, most frustrated, most ready to walk away. What makes them dangerous is that they don't fear the damage chaos brings, they welcome it. The emotional toll, the strained relationships, the shattered trust, these are not costs to them, they are trophies. And because they know how to stay calm while you unravel, they can make you look like the irrational one. The only way to win is not to play. Step back, deny them the battlefield. In silence, you starve the storm they're trying to grow. And when the chaos fails to spread, they're left standing alone, surrounded not by the fire they craved, but by the cold truth that you refuse to fuel it. Time reveals truth. Rushing only hides it. Truth has a way of surfacing when given room to breathe. Lies, illusions, and half-truths may dazzle in the moment, but they wither under the weight of time. People can wear masks convincingly for a while, playing roles with precision, but no one can keep the performance flawless forever. When you allow time to run its course, cracks appear, patterns emerge, and the truth steps into the light without you having to force it. Rushing, however, is the great enabler of deception. In haste, we accept the story given without questioning it. We overlook inconsistencies, and we make decisions before reality has had a chance to fully reveal itself. Manipulators thrive in urgency. They push deadlines, create false emergencies, and insist that waiting will mean losing everything. They know that speed keeps you from seeing clearly. Patience is not passive, it's a weapon. By giving situations the space to unfold, you strip away the advantage of those who rely on momentum to maintain control. The truths that emerge slowly are often the ones people would rather you never see. Intentions that don't match actions, words that don't match behavior, promises that dissolve when tested. Time doesn't just reveal others, it reveals you. It shows whether your feelings are fleeting or lasting, whether your instincts hold up under pressure, whether what you thought you wanted is still worth wanting. And in that slow unveiling, you gain not just clarity, but the ability to act with precision, long after the illusions have burned away. Silence can be a greater answer than words. There are moments when speaking feeds the fire, when every word you offer becomes fuel for misunderstanding, conflict, or manipulation. Silence in those moments is not weakness, it is precision. It is the decision to withhold what they expect, to give nothing they can twist, to leave the weight of the moment hanging until it speaks louder than any sentence could. Silence can disarm more effectively than argument. When accusations are met with stillness, the accuser is left wrestling with their own words. When provocation is met with calm, it exposes the desperation of the one trying to pull you into chaos. It is the refusal to fight battles designed only to exhaust you. It also creates space for truth to reveal itself, for emotions to settle, for the fog of impulse to clear. Words spoken in anger or panic often carry regret, but silence gives you time to choose if and how you will respond at all. Sometimes the absence of a reaction becomes the most powerful statement, one that forces others to sit with what they've done or said without the distraction of your defense. And in the right moments, silence isn't empty. It's full of control, of observation, of awareness. You notice more when you're not talking. You catch shifts in tone, glances exchanged, truths betrayed in body language. In a world desperate to fill every gap with noise, the one who can remain silent owns the most commanding voice in the room, the one that doesn't need to speak to be heard. Not every battle is meant to be fought. The urge to fight back is primal, an instinct to defend pride, prove worth, or destroy what threatens you. But not every challenge deserves your energy, and not every insult requires an answer. Some battles are traps designed to drain you, distract you, or pull you into a war where even winning costs more than walking away. The strongest aren't those who fight every enemy. They're the ones who know which enemies matter. Fighting without purpose scatters your strength. You burn time, resources, and peace of mind on conflicts that change nothing, while the real threats grow unchecked. Manipulators thrive on this, baiting you with petty provocations to lure you away from the ground you should be defending. They know that every minute you spend in a pointless fight is a minute you're not building, advancing, or preparing for the war that actually matters. Wisdom lies in discernment. Sometimes silence wounds more than retaliation. Sometimes stepping aside lets your opponent swing wildly into empty air until they exhaust themselves. And sometimes simply refusing to play the game is the most devastating move you can make. Every battle carries a cost. Your attention, your energy, your focus. Spend them recklessly, and you'll have nothing left when the fight that truly determines your future arrives. Victory isn't about proving you can fight. It's about knowing when the fight isn't worth proving at all. Comfort weakens more warriors than war itself. Hardship forges strength in ways peace never can. Struggle demands endurance, sharpens instincts, and teaches the mind to adapt under fire. Yet the moment the battle ends and comfort settles in, the edge that once kept a warrior alive begins to dull. Softness is seductive. It whispers that you've earned rest, that you no longer need to push, that the danger has passed. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade vigilance for ease and strength for complacency. Comfort doesn't strike like an enemy. It seeps in like a slow poison. Days become predictable, challenges optional, and the urgency to grow fades. The habits built in hardship, discipline, grit, hunger, are quietly replaced with indulgence, distraction, and the illusion that your current state will last forever. By the time you feel the weakness setting in, it's already woven into your bones. History is full of civilizations that fell not from the enemy's sword, but from within, decayed by luxury, corrupted by convenience. Individuals are no different. A person who has tasted both battle and comfort often fears the fight less than the slow death of purpose that comes when life is too easy. War demands that you be ready at every moment. Comfort asks nothing of you until the day it's gone and you're too unprepared to face what's coming. And when that day arrives, the warrior who survived every battle may find that the deadliest foe was not the enemy at the gate, but the softness that crept in once the gates were closed. A humble heart hears wisdom. Pride builds walls so high that truth cannot climb them. When you believe you already know enough, you stop listening, not just to others, but to life itself. Opportunities to learn pass by unnoticed, advice is dismissed as irrelevant, and warnings are mistaken for challenges to prove wrong. Pride doesn't just blind, it deafens, shutting out the voices that could guide you away from mistakes you don't yet see coming. Humility, on the other hand, opens the door to understanding. A humble heart is not one that thinks less of itself, but one that is willing to be wrong, to be taught, to admit there is more to learn. In that openness, wisdom flows freely because the ego is no longer standing guard at the gate. You begin to hear truths that pride would have filtered out, seeing value even in perspectives you disagree with. The danger of pride is that it mistakes volume for value. It trusts only the voice in its own head, ignoring the quiet lessons being whispered all around. Humility listens in the silences, in the subtle cues, in the lived experiences of others. It can find wisdom in a child's question, in a stranger's story, in the simple observation of the world. Those who live humbly are never empty-handed, because every encounter becomes an opportunity to grow. Pride chases the illusion of already knowing. Humility collects truth piece by piece until it holds something pride will never have, a deep, unshakable wisdom born not from speaking, but from truly hearing. To know the road ahead, ask those returning experience is the most honest map, and those who have already walked the path carry truths that no theory or guesswork can match. The road ahead may look clear from a distance, but its real story is written in the feet that have stumbled over its stones, in the hands that have pushed through its brambles, in the hearts that have faced its quiet turns and hidden traps. Those returning from the journey know where the path bends unexpectedly, where the easy-looking trail gives way to steep climbs, and where the beauty hides just beyond the hard stretches. They remember the choices they wish they had made sooner, the dangers they underestimated, and the moments they nearly turned back. When they speak, they carry not just knowledge, but the weight of consequences. Seeking their counsel isn't weakness, it's acceleration. It's cutting through the illusions that trip up the unprepared. It's the difference between stepping into a storm blind and knowing exactly where the shelter lies. The returning traveler has no need to impress you. Their wisdom isn't theory dressed as insight. It's truth forged in miles, mistakes, and survival. Ignoring them means gambling your time, your energy, and sometimes more. Listening means arming yourself with foresight others had to pay for in blood, sweat, and loss. And while the road ahead will still demand your own steps, your own risks, and your own courage, the words of those who've already made the journey can mean the difference between getting lost and arriving stronger than you imagined. You can't heal in the place that made you sick. Wounds don't close in the same soil that poisoned them. You can patch yourself up, read the right words, even convince yourself you're stronger now, but if you remain where the harm was done, the very air you breathe will keep the wound open. Healing requires more than time. It demands a shift in environment, away from the triggers, patterns, and people that fed the damage in the first place. Staying feels safe because it's familiar, but familiarity is often the disguise of harm. The mind clings to what it knows, even when what it knows is killing it. You tell yourself you'll rise above it, that you'll be different this time, but the walls still whisper the same lies, the faces still carry the same control, and the habits creep back in like weeds through cracked stone. Toxic environments rarely change for your benefit. They've learned to thrive exactly as they are, and while you stay, you're not just fighting to heal, you're fighting the constant reopening of the wound. That fight drains you before the real recovery can even begin. Stepping away is not weakness, it's survival. Distance gives perspective, and perspective gives power. Only when you remove yourself from the place that broke you can you see how deep the damage runs, and only then can you rebuild without the constant touch of the hand that tore you down. Sometimes leaving isn't running away, it's the first breath of clean air after years of breathing poison. Choose the hard right over the easy wrong. The path of the easy wrong is paved with instant rewards, quick relief, fast gains, and the comfort of avoiding struggle. It tempts with promises of ease, whispering that the consequences can wait or that no one will notice. But each step down that road comes with a silent toll, eroding integrity and chipping away at the person you thought you were. The damage is rarely immediate. It builds slowly, like rot beneath a polished surface, until one day the foundation collapses. The hard right is rarely glamorous. It demands sacrifice when no one is watching, discipline when shortcuts are within reach, and the courage to stand firm when the world tries to sway you. It costs more in the moment, time, effort, even relationships, but it's an investment that pays back in ways the easy wrong never can. Choosing it means enduring the discomfort of doing what's right, even when it's unpopular, misunderstood, or painfully inconvenient. What makes this choice so powerful is that it defines you when no one else will. It's easy to act with honor when the reward is clear. It's another thing entirely when the only thing you gain is knowing you stayed true. The easy wrong feels like winning until the truth catches up. The hard right feels like losing until time reveals it was the only victory that mattered. Every choice writes your story, and the ones forged in difficulty are the chapters that last, because they prove you can't be bought by comfort, fear, or the false promise of an easier way. Forgiving is freeing yourself, not excusing them. Holding on to resentment feels like protecting yourself, as if clutching the memory of the wound will somehow prevent it from happening again. But in reality, the weight you carry does more harm to you than to the one who hurt you. Forgiveness is not about erasing the wrong or pretending it didn't matter. It's about breaking the chain that keeps you tethered to the pain. When you refuse to forgive, you relive the injury each time you think of it. The anger, the betrayal, the sense of injustice, it all floods back as if it just happened. Meanwhile, the other person may have moved on entirely, or worse, may not care at all. They continue living while you remain anchored to a moment that will never change. Forgiveness severs that anchor. This act does not mean you condone what they did or invite them to do it again. It doesn't mean trust is restored or that boundaries should be lowered. It means you choose to release the grip their actions have on your inner world. You stop giving them the power to dictate your peace. Forgiveness is for your mind, your heart, your health. It is reclaiming the energy you've been spending on replaying the past and using it to move forward. It's the quiet but powerful decision to no longer let someone else's wrongdoing define your days. In that release, you discover that the freedom you thought they took from you was always yours to give back to yourself. The deepest wounds are often unseen. Pain doesn't always bleed where the world can see it. Some of the most devastating wounds leave no scars on the skin, yet they carve deep into the mind and soul. These are the injuries no one rushes to bandage because they're hidden beneath composure, smiles, and perfectly timed "I'm fines." And because they remain invisible, they are often misunderstood, minimized, or ignored entirely. Emotional and psychological wounds cut just as sharply as physical ones, sometimes more. Betrayal, grief, rejection, abuse, or relentless self-doubt can haunt a person long after the moment has passed. They replay in quiet hours, in sudden silences, in dreams that steal rest. The pain lingers because there's no easy remedy, no cast to set, no visible proof to demand care. Those who carry these wounds often become experts in concealment. They laugh at the right moments, hold conversations without letting their voice tremble, and continue moving through life while quietly unraveling inside. It's not weakness, it's survival. But the danger is that the world rarely offers healing to wounds it cannot see. The unseen nature of this pain makes it easy for others to dismiss, and for the wounded to convince themselves it doesn't matter as much as it does. Yet untreated, these injuries shape everything: how trust is given, how love is accepted, how the future is approached. The absence of visible scars doesn't make the wound shallow. Sometimes it makes it far deeper because it has been carried alone, in silence, for far too long. Words are seeds. Choose which garden to plant them in. Every word you speak carries weight, even the ones tossed out carelessly. They take root in the minds and hearts of others, growing into beliefs, memories, and emotions that can linger for years. A single phrase can plant courage in someone's chest or poison their spirit until they doubt their worth. The difference lies in where and how you choose to plant it. Once spoken, words can't be unsaid. They grow in the soil of whoever hears them, shaped by their experiences and vulnerabilities. Encouragement can bloom into resilience long after you've forgotten giving it. A cruel remark can fester quietly, replaying in someone's mind until it becomes part of how they see themselves. Some gardens will nurture your words into towering truths. Others will twist them into weapons. A skilled manipulator knows this well. They plant subtle suggestions where they know insecurity already lives, letting them grow into self-doubt that feels like it came from within. But you can choose differently. You can plant words in fertile ground where they inspire growth instead of decay. The danger is forgetting that every seed, good or bad, eventually bears fruit. You may not be there to see the harvest, but it will come. The jokes, the criticisms, the reassurances, all of them live on in the gardens of other people's minds, and in time, they'll feed on what you planted, for better or worse. The wise speak with intention, not because silence is safer, but because they know the garden you plant in today might just shape the world you walk through tomorrow. What you chase is often what runs from you. The harder you grip, the faster it slips away. Desire has a way of turning pursuit into pressure and pressure into distance. Whether it's a person, a goal, or an opportunity, chasing with desperation signals a kind of hunger that repels instead of attracts. People sense it. Opportunities sense it. The very thing you want most begins to pull away, not because it's out of reach, but because the force of your pursuit changes its nature. Chasing distorts balance. In relationships, it can make affection feel like obligation to the one being pursued, turning warmth into resistance. In ambitions, it can lead to reckless moves, cutting corners, and burning out before the finish line. The irony is that the more you need something to fill a gap inside you, the more that gap shows, and the more what you want slips further into the distance. True magnetism comes from walking toward what you want without making it your oxygen. It's in holding your ground, valuing yourself enough to know you can survive without it, and creating a space where it wants to come closer on its own. When you stop chasing, you see more clearly. You notice the paths you were ignoring, the doors you didn't realize were open, the people and opportunities quietly moving toward you while you were too busy running after the ones that kept fleeing. Sometimes what you seek isn't meant to be caught, and sometimes the moment you stop running is the moment it finally turns and comes to you. Beware of advice from those who profit from your confusion. Not all guidance is given to help you. Sometimes it's crafted to keep you dependent, uncertain, and easily influenced. There are people who thrive on you not having clarity, because confusion makes you vulnerable. When you're unsure of yourself, you look to others for answers, and the ones who benefit from that hesitation are often the first to step in with advice. Their counsel may sound wise, even generous, but it's laced with subtle threads that keep you questioning your own judgment. They might overload you with unnecessary complexity, making simple choices feel impossible without their expert input. They might frame your options in ways that always lead back to them as the solution. Or they may shift their advice over time, ensuring you're never quite confident enough to move forward without checking with them first. The profit they seek isn't always money. It can be influence, control, loyalty, or the satisfaction of knowing you rely on them. In business, this can look like a consultant who never truly solves your problem because your dependency is their paycheck. In personal relationships, it's the friend or partner who plays the role of rescuer while subtly keeping you lost. The most dangerous part is that their advice often contains just enough truth to sound credible. You follow it, thinking they've guided you well, while not realizing the very confusion they claim to clear is the same fog they've been quietly keeping you in. True advice empowers you to think clearly on your own. Anything else is just another leash. A man who kneels before truth stands taller before men. There is a strength that comes not from power, wealth, or dominance, but from the humility to submit to what is real. Truth can be humbling, even crushing. It strips away illusions, exposes mistakes, and forces you to see yourself without the armor of pride. To kneel before it is to accept that you are not above it, that your ego does not dictate reality, and that honesty is worth more than the comfort of self-deception. Those who bow to truth gain a different kind of authority. They no longer need to fear being exposed because they have already exposed themselves to the highest judge, reality itself. In a world where so many posture and perform, the man who admits his faults, acknowledges his limits, and stands on what is right becomes rare and therefore powerful. This submission to truth doesn't weaken a person, it forges them. It builds a reputation that no rumor can dismantle and earns respect that cannot be demanded. Others sense it. They see the steadiness in someone who doesn't bend facts to fit convenience, who refuses to trade integrity for approval. When you kneel before truth, you rise free from the chains of lies and the exhausting work of keeping them intact. You stand before others not as someone pretending to be unbreakable, but as someone who cannot be broken by exposure. And in that unshakable honesty, you stand taller than those who spend their lives hiding in the shadows of their own falsehoods. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. The effort it takes to be disciplined can feel heavy in the moment. A morning run in the cold, saying no to temptation, putting in the work when you'd rather rest. But that weight is light compared to the crushing burden of regret. Discipline demands small, repeated sacrifices. Regret demands everything you wish you'd done differently and offers no way to undo it. Discipline is the quiet ache of doing what's necessary when no one's watching. It's the sting of turning down instant gratification in favor of long-term gain. Those moments may feel like you're carrying a load, but they build strength, resilience, and a future you can live with. Regret, on the other hand, is the dead weight of missed opportunities and neglected responsibilities, a heaviness that lingers for years because it's not just about what happened, but what could have been. The mind replays regret in endless loops, each pass adding more weight. You can't lift it, can't shift it, can't set it down. It corrodes the present because it chains you to a past you can't change. Discipline, in contrast, is a weight you choose to carry, a load that gets lighter as you grow stronger. The cruel truth is that you'll carry one of them no matter what. One is the ounce you lift today in discomfort. The other is the ton that crushes you tomorrow when the chance to act has passed. And the choice isn't between weight and no weight. It's between the burden that builds you and the one that breaks you. Power without compassion destroys the holder. Power by itself is intoxicating. It feeds the ego, sharpens ambition, and convinces you that your will alone can bend the world to your desires. But without compassion to guide it, power becomes a weapon that wounds not just those it touches, but the one who wields it. The cruelty of unchecked authority is that it corrodes from the inside out, hollowing the holder until all that's left is the need to dominate, control, and take more. Compassion is the anchor that keeps power from drifting into tyranny. It reminds you that the people under your influence are not pieces on a board, but lives with weight and worth equal to your own. Without that anchor, every decision tilts towards self-interest. Every victory is built on someone else's loss, and every ounce of control demands more and more to maintain. History is filled with leaders who conquered nations but could not govern themselves, men and women who believed their might made them right, only to be undone by their own arrogance and cruelty. The tragedy isn't just in the suffering they caused others, but in how their humanity withered away until they could no longer see beyond their own reflection. Power without compassion burns like an uncontained fire. At first, it feels warm, even glorious, but in time it consumes everything, including the one who lit it. And when it's gone, there's nothing left but ash. Proof that the true strength of power is not in how much you hold, but in how gently you choose to carry it. You can't drink from a poisoned well without consequence. Some sources seem to offer exactly what you need: comfort, guidance, validation, opportunity. But beneath the surface, the water is tainted. You may think you can take just a sip, get what you need, and walk away unaffected. But poison doesn't work like that. Whether it's a person, a habit, or an environment, when the source is toxic, anything you take from it carries a cost. The danger often hides in the early ease. That first sip feels refreshing. The words soothe you. The attention feels good. The deal seems perfect. You tell yourself you're in control, that you can keep the boundaries clear, that you'll leave before any damage is done. But toxins work subtly. They seep in, change you quietly, and by the time you feel the effects, they've already spread. In relationships, this could mean leaning on someone for emotional support, even though they've repeatedly shown their manipulation. In work, it could be accepting opportunities from people whose values corrode integrity. You might believe you can take what's useful and leave the rest, but the truth is, contact with the source changes you, sometimes in ways you don't notice until it's too late. Every drink from a poisoned well reinforces the habit of returning to it. The more you normalize taking from it, the easier it becomes to overlook the harm. And once you're thirsty enough, you might not care about the poison at all, until you realize the damage can't simply be undone by walking away. People reveal themselves when they have nothing to gain. It's easy to wear a mask when there's something on the line: a job to win, approval to earn, love to secure. Politeness, generosity, and charm often flow freely when they serve a purpose, but strip away the incentive, and what remains is who a person truly is. When there's no audience to impress, no advantage to chase, and no reward to claim, the performance ends, and the real character steps into the light. In these moments, you see how they treat the powerless, the overlooked, and those who can offer them nothing in return. Do they still show kindness when no one's watching? Do they still speak with respect when the conversation doesn't benefit them? Or does their warmth evaporate, revealing indifference, selfishness, or quiet cruelty? The absence of gain removes the camouflage. You notice the subtle tells: a sharp tone to a waiter, a dismissive glance towards someone struggling, the way they vanish when help is needed, but no praise is promised. These are the cracks that no amount of charm can hide. True character is measured not in how someone acts when everything is at stake, but in how they behave when nothing is. Some will still give their best, not because they expect something in return, but because it's who they are. Others will reveal that their kindness was never kindness at all. It was currency. And when the transaction ends, so does the facade. A wise enemy can be more useful than a foolish friend. An enemy who is intelligent, strategic, and capable will sharpen you in ways a careless friend never could. A wise enemy forces you to think deeper, move smarter, and see the flaws in yourself you'd rather ignore. They keep you alert because you know they're watching, waiting, and ready to strike if you stumble. In their opposition, they become a mirror that reflects both your strengths and your vulnerabilities. A foolish friend, on the other hand, can harm you without malice. Their bad advice, poor judgment, or reckless actions can drag you into trouble you never saw coming. They might mean well, but their loyalty cannot protect you from the consequences of their ignorance. You can defend against a cunning enemy. You can anticipate their moves, study their patterns, and prepare for their strikes. But you can't defend against the damage done by someone you trust blindly, who doesn't know they're steering you toward disaster. A wise enemy teaches you discipline. They show you where you're weak because they'll exploit it. They push you to evolve because staying the same means losing. And sometimes, in their ruthless clarity, they can reveal truths your friends are too kind or too oblivious to say out loud. The danger lies in underestimating the harm of the well-meaning but foolish. Their mistakes are wrapped in trust, so you see them too late. A wise enemy's attack you expect, a foolish friend's failure blindsides you. And when the cost is high, you may find that the sharpened edge your enemy gave you was worth more than the false comfort of a friend who never challenged you at all. Secrets are chains if you carry too many. A single secret can feel light, almost thrilling, something hidden away like a treasure only you possess. But as they accumulate, they grow heavier, each one a link in a chain that winds itself tighter around you. Secrets demand energy to protect. They shape what you say, where you go, even how you think, until your life becomes less about living freely and more about guarding the walls you've built around the truth. The weight isn't just in the fear of being discovered, it's in the constant calculation. Every conversation becomes a minefield. You edit your words mid-sentence, avoid certain people, deflect certain questions. Your mind learns to live on guard, and over time, that vigilance seeps into your bones, leaving you tense even when there's no threat in sight. Some secrets are kept to protect others, some to protect ourselves, and some because the truth feels too dangerous to face. But when too many are locked inside, they don't just stay buried, they grow. Shame amplifies them, guilt distorts them, and the longer they're hidden, the more monstrous they seem. The danger is that secrets isolate you. They create distance from the people who might care the most, and they feed the illusion that you must carry everything alone. And the more you carry, the more those chains define you, not by who you are, but by what you're afraid to let be known. Each secret becomes a silent weight, and before long, you're not just keeping them, they're keeping you. Learn to leave while the room still claps. There's a rare kind of wisdom in walking away at the height of your moment, before the applause fades, before the smiles become forced, before the light in people's eyes starts to dim. Most cling to the stage too long, whether that stage is a career, a relationship, or a role in someone's life, believing that the moment will stretch on forever. But every ovation has an end, and staying past it turns admiration into tolerance, and tolerance into indifference. Leaving while the room still claps means valuing timing over ego. It means recognizing that the energy in the moment is not infinite, and that the way people remember you often matters more than how long you were there. Departing at your peak leaves your presence etched in their minds with the warmth and power of its best version, untainted by decline or overstay. It's tempting to hold on, especially when the praise is intoxicating. The human heart craves more, convinced that the next round of applause will feel just as good. But in chasing one more cheer, you risk watching the seats empty while you're still performing. Knowing when to leave requires self-awareness and courage. You have to read the room, trust your instincts, and choose legacy over lingering. The applause will end whether you stay or go, but if you walk away at the height of it, the echo will follow you, and people will remember the way you made them feel when you were still worth standing for. The richest soil often comes from the dirtiest hands. Growth is rarely born from comfort. The most fertile ground is often shaped by sweat, struggle, and work that stains your skin and tests your endurance. In nature, the richest soil is dark, thick, and formed from years of decay and transformation. It carries the remnants of what once was, broken down into the foundation of what will be. In life, the same is true. The greatest growth often comes from the hardest labor and the messiest battles. Those with clean, untested hands may stand in the sun, but they've never felt the grit of shaping something from nothing. The ones whose hands are callous, scarred, or dirt-streaked have dug deep into the earth, into themselves, into the raw, unpolished realities that most avoid. They've worked through failures, endured hardship, and faced the parts of life that are far from glamorous, and in doing so, they've planted seeds others will one day admire. It is in the digging, lifting, and breaking that the ground becomes ready for new life. Struggle forces resilience, loss cultivates empathy, and relentless effort builds strength that no easy path can match. Those who have been unafraid to get their hands dirty carry the richest harvest, not because the work was easy, but because it transformed them along the way. What looks like dirt to the untrained eye is often the very thing that makes life possible. And what looks like hardship to the outsider is often the hidden source of someone's deepest strength, the fertile bed where their greatest successes will one day take root. Never trust a man who mistreats those who serve him. How someone treats those beneath them reveals more truth than how they treat those they want to impress. Charm, generosity, and respect toward equals or superiors can be an act, a mask worn to win approval or status. But the way a man treats a waiter, an assistant, a janitor, or anyone in a position of service strips that mask away. In those moments, you see the core of his character, whether kindness is his nature or just a costume. Mistreatment of those who serve is rarely about the service itself. It's about dominance. It's the need to remind others of their place, to flex power in situations where there's no risk of challenge. It's cruelty without consequence, and that's the purest form of cruelty there is. If someone takes pleasure in belittling the powerless, you can be certain that same disdain will surface when you are no longer useful to them. A man who respects those who serve understands humility, gratitude, and the worth of all people, regardless of status. A man who abuses them understands only hierarchy, seeing relationships as tools to be used until they break. Today, it might be a waiter he snaps at for a slow order. Tomorrow, when the balance shifts, it could be you. Trust is built on the consistency of respect, not selective courtesy. And if his decency depends on who's watching or what he stands to gain, then it isn't decency at all. It's strategy. The truest measure of a man's character is how he treats the people who can do nothing for him. Joy is found in the ordinary. If the eyes are open, life often whispers its beauty in moments so small they're easy to overlook. The steam curling off a morning cup of coffee, the warmth of sunlight spilling through a window, the quiet rhythm of someone's breathing as they fall asleep beside you. These moments don't demand attention, they wait for it. And if your eyes aren't open, you'll miss them entirely while chasing something grander. We're conditioned to think joy lives in milestones, promotions, vacations, achievements, those rare peaks we climb toward. But if happiness is only allowed at the summit, we spend most of our lives waiting for it, blind to the truth that the view along the way was just as breathtaking. The ordinary holds a depth that's invisible to hurried eyes. It reveals itself only when you slow down enough to notice. The danger of overlooking the ordinary is that life becomes a blur of almost there. Days pass as placeholders for the bigger things you're striving toward, until one day you realize the bigger things never lasted, but the small ones were there all along, and you let them slip through your fingers. When your eyes are open, the ordinary transforms. A shared laugh on a Tuesday afternoon can outshine the glow of any grand celebration. A moment of stillness in the middle of chaos can feel like a rare treasure. Joy isn't hiding. It's waiting in the cracks between the moments we think matter most. And once you learn to see it there, you realize it was never small at all. Don't trade peace for applause. The roar of approval can be intoxicating. Every cheer, every compliment, every nod of validation, feeding the part of you that craves to be seen and admired. But applause is fleeting, and when it becomes the currency you chase, you'll spend your most valuable possession to keep earning it, your peace. The moment you start living for the crowd, you hand them the power to decide when you're worthy, when you're enough, and when you're no longer worth clapping for. Sacrificing peace for applause often begins subtly. You take on commitments you don't want just to be praised for your dedication. You say yes when you mean no because the approval feels safer than the disappointment you fear. You perform instead of living, adjusting yourself to match what you think will keep the noise going. But every round of applause you earn this way comes with a cost: exhaustion, resentment, and a growing emptiness that applause can't fill. Peace is quiet, and that's why it's harder to notice when it's slipping away. Applause is loud, urgent, and public, making it feel more important in the moment. But once the lights go out and the crowd goes home, you're left alone with yourself. And if you've traded away your peace, that silence can feel suffocating. Choosing peace means being willing to disappoint others to protect what steadies you. It means letting some applause go unearned so you can keep the stillness that keeps you whole. Because the truth is, the world forgets its heroes quickly, but you have to live with yourself forever. The path to wisdom begins with the death of ego. Ego is the loud voice in the mind that insists it already knows, already understands, already stands above correction. It clings to pride, resists humility, and defends itself at the cost of truth. As long as it lives unchecked, it blinds you to lessons, closes you off to perspectives, and traps you in the prison of your own certainty. The journey toward wisdom can't begin until that voice is quieted, until you let go of the need to be right more than you need to be aware. The death of ego is not a single moment, but a dismantling. It happens each time you admit you don't have all the answers, when you accept guidance from someone with more experience, or when you choose to learn instead of to win. It's in the silence where you listen without planning your rebuttal, in the pause before reacting defensively, in the recognition that your value isn't diminished by someone else knowing more than you. Without ego's constant interference, you become teachable. The world opens and lessons come from everywhere. Strangers, failures, even those you once dismissed. You no longer need to guard your image so fiercely because your worth is no longer tied to being flawless. Instead, you start seeking truth over validation, growth over comfort, and in that shift, you begin to see wisdom not as a crown to wear, but as a path you walk, a path only visible once the fog of ego has lifted, leaving you humble enough to follow where it leads. Sometimes the best answer is no. Opportunities, requests, and invitations often come wrapped in urgency, flattery, or guilt, making yes feel like the easiest, safest response. But every yes is a commitment of your time, energy, and attention, resources you can never get back. Saying no isn't rejection for the sake of defiance. It's the conscious act of protecting what matters most to you from being eroded by what doesn't. The pressure to agree is constant. People will appeal to your kindness, your ambition, your fear of missing out. They'll make no sound selfish, rude, or even dangerous to your reputation. And yet, the most damaging regrets often come from the times you agreed when every part of you knew you shouldn't. The wrong yes can trap you in obligations that drain you, harm your boundaries, and keep you from what you truly want. No can be a shield. It stops manipulative people from exploiting your willingness to please. It closes the door on distractions disguised as opportunities. It sends a clear message to others and to yourself that your time and energy are not free for the taking. The irony is that the people who push hardest for your yes are often the ones who benefit most from your lack of resistance. The more you practice no, the more you see who respects your boundaries and who only valued you when they could control you. In a world eager to consume every bit of you it can, no is not just a refusal, it's a form of survival. Fear fades when faced, but grows when fed. Fear is a shapeshifter. Left unchallenged, it swells in the shadows, feeding on your imagination until it becomes larger than life. Every time you avoid what scares you, you hand it more power, teaching your mind to see it as untouchable. The longer you let it sit unchallenged, the more it burrows in, turning possibility into paralysis. But when you face it, truly stand before it, the illusion begins to crack. Most fears are built from fragments of truth, stitched together with exaggeration and worst-case scenarios. The moment you step into its presence, you see it for what it is, not an unstoppable monster, but something tangible and therefore conquerable. Even if the encounter is uncomfortable, the act of facing it shrinks it. Avoidance, however, is a quiet form of surrender. Each sidestep, each excuse, each delay is a meal for the thing you fear. You rehearse the dread in your mind until it feels certain, and in doing so, you give it a reality it might never have had. This is why fear often feels heavier in anticipation than in the actual moment. It's been fattened by your own imagination. The mind learns from repetition. Face fear enough, and your brain begins to trust that you can survive it. Feed fear enough, and it learns that it can control you. Which lesson you teach it determines whether fear becomes a passing shadow or a lifelong prison guard standing between you and the life you were meant to live. The one who angers you controls you. Anger feels like power in the moment, a rush of heat, a surge of energy, the conviction that you're standing your ground. But when someone can provoke that reaction in you at will, it's not strength they're drawing out, it's control they're taking. The instant you let your emotions dictate your actions, they've stepped into the driver's seat of your behavior. Those who know how to trigger your anger can steer you anywhere they want. They can make you lash out so you look reckless, push you into saying things you'll regret, or distract you from the real issue while you're busy defending your pride. Anger clouds judgment, narrows focus, and makes long-term thinking disappear. In that haze, you're no longer acting by choice, you're reacting on command. Some will provoke you intentionally, not because they care about the argument, but because they want the chaos it creates. They'll poke at your insecurities, twist your words, or strike at the exact nerve they know will make you snap. And the more you react, the more you reinforce their power, showing them that with just a spark they can set your whole mind ablaze. Real strength isn't in unleashing your anger, it's in mastering it. When you can feel the fire rising and still choose how, when, or if you respond, you take back the control they were trying to claim. Because the truth is, the person who can dictate your emotions is already halfway to dictating your decisions. And once they own both, they own you. Be careful what you tolerate. It becomes your standard. Every time you allow something to slide, a broken promise, a disrespectful comment, a boundary crossed, you teach the world how to treat you. What you permit once becomes easier to permit again, and slowly, almost without noticing, the exception becomes the rule. Tolerance can be a virtue when it comes from compassion, but it becomes a trap when it's born from fear, exhaustion, or the hope that bad behavior will correct itself. The shift is subtle. At first, you tell yourself it's not worth the fight, that it's just a small thing. You justify it. They didn't mean it. It's not always like this. I can handle it. But what you endure quietly becomes the new baseline. Others stop seeing it as crossing a line, and you stop noticing how far that line has moved. By the time you realize how much has changed, you may already be standing in a life that bears little resemblance to the one you wanted. This erosion of standards doesn't just affect how others treat you, it shapes how you see yourself. Accepting less than you deserve convinces you that less is all you're worth. And once that belief takes root, it's no longer just others lowering the bar. You begin lowering it for yourself. The danger is not in the single moment of tolerance, but in the quiet accumulation of them. Each one plants a seed that says, "This is acceptable," and over time, those seeds grow into a reality where your silence has written the rules, and you're left living by standards you never consciously agreed to. Those who gossip to you will gossip about you. When someone eagerly delivers the private details of another person's life, it may feel like trust, like you've been invited into a hidden circle of secrets. But gossip is rarely about connection. It's about currency. The moment you become their audience, you've proven you're willing to listen, and in their mind, that makes you fair game for the same treatment. The tongue that slices others behind their backs will not hesitate to turn on you when it serves their purpose. Gossipers operate on impulse and opportunity. They thrive on the rush of attention that comes from having something exclusive to share, and they're loyal only to the thrill of being listened to. If they can trade your secrets for influence, entertainment, or validation, they will, just as easily as they traded someone else's to win your interests. The danger is subtle. At first, you might mistake their indiscretions for intimacy, believing they're confiding in you because you're special. In reality, you're simply the latest safe container for their words, one they'll eventually spill to someone else when the moment feels right. How someone speaks about others in their absence is a mirror reflecting how they'll speak about you. Discretion is a habit, and so is betrayal. A person who guards the privacy of others will guard yours. A person who weaponizes it for conversation will do the same with anything you give them. Listening to gossip is never neutral. It's an unspoken invitation for your own life to be passed around when you're not in the room. Respect is earned in silence, not demanded in noise. True respect is not seized through volume or forced through fear. It is quietly cultivated in the way you carry yourself when no one is clapping. The loudest demands for respect often come from those who have not earned it, mistaking intimidation for influence and obedience for honor. They shout, posture, and assert their authority, hoping the echo will convince others it's real. But respect built on noise is brittle. It cracks the moment the shouting stops. Silence, on the other hand, speaks in subtler tones. It's in the way you keep your word, even when it costs you. It's in how you treat people who can give you nothing. It's in the steadiness you hold under pressure, the grace you show when provoked, the work you do without fanfare. People remember actions that speak for themselves because they ring louder in the mind than any demand ever could. The beauty of respect earned in silence is that it cannot be taken. It follows you because it's rooted in who you are, not in how loudly you insist on being acknowledged. Those who watch you over time begin to trust your strength without you needing to announce it. Noise fades, but the impression left by quiet integrity lingers. And when the moment comes when your voice must be heard, it will carry farther, not because it's louder, but because those listening have already decided you're worth hearing. A man's true wealth is the good he does in the world. Money, possessions, and titles can all create the illusion of abundance, but they are temporary currencies, spent, lost, or forgotten with time. What endures is the impact you leave on the lives you touch. The measure of a person's real wealth is not how much they've gathered, but how much they've given in ways that make the world better. Acts of genuine good, whether grand or quiet, create ripples that outlast you. Feeding someone who's hungry, protecting someone who's vulnerable, offering guidance that changes a life's direction, these are investments that never lose value. They live on in the memories, opportunities, and hope you plant in others. Long after money is spent and possessions fade, the good you've done becomes the legacy that carries your name without needing to be spoken. The irony is that the pursuit of material wealth alone can leave people hollow, endlessly chasing more with no lasting satisfaction. But when your focus shifts to what you can contribute, your life fills with a richness that cannot be stolen or diminished. Goodness is a currency immune to inflation and immune to theft. It grows each time you spend it. The world often celebrates accumulation, yet history remembers those who gave. The greatest fortunes are written not in bank ledgers, but in changed lives and uplifted spirits. And when your final balance is tallied, the only wealth that truly matters will be the good you left behind, wealth that multiplies long after you're gone. You can't build trust overnight, but you can destroy it. Instantly, trust is slow work, brick by brick, moment by moment, laid over time with consistency, honesty, and care. It grows in the quiet repetition of kept promises, in the reliability of showing up, in the steady proof that your words align with your actions. It's not something you can demand, it's something you earn, often without fanfare, through years of small, faithful acts. But while trust takes time to build, it is frighteningly fragile. One lie, one betrayal, one moment of selfishness at the wrong time can send it crashing to the ground. The same mind that took months or years to fully believe in, you can learn to doubt you in seconds. And once doubt takes root, it doesn't vanish easily. It lingers, second-guessing every word, re-examining every past action, wondering what else it missed. The danger is that we often take trust for granted, assuming it's permanent once earned. We forget how hard it was to build and how easy it is to break. A single careless choice can undo the weight of countless good ones, and no matter how deeply someone cares for you, they cannot unsee a betrayal. Rebuilding trust is possible, but it is never the same. The cracks may heal, but the scar remains, a reminder of how quickly something precious can be lost. That's why those who value it guard it fiercely, knowing that the greatest damage often comes not from those who failed to earn trust, but from those who once had it and forgot what it was worth. A wise man counts his blessings before his burdens. The mind will always find what it's trained to look for. Focus on burdens first, and the weight of life grows heavier with every thought. Focus on blessings first, and even the heaviest loads feel lighter because you've reminded yourself of the strength, resources, and fortune you still carry. Gratitude is not blindness to hardship. It is the perspective that keeps hardship from becoming all you see. A wise man knows that challenges are inevitable, but despair is optional. By counting blessings before burdens, he anchors himself in what's good, stable, and worth protecting. This doesn't make the burdens disappear. It makes them manageable. When you start from gratitude, problems are obstacles to navigate, not evidence that life is against you. The trap is that burdens demand attention. Pain shouts, gratitude whispers. If you let the noise of what's wrong drown out the quiet truth of what's right, you'll start believing you have nothing worth holding on to. The wise resist that pull. They count what's working, health, loved ones, skills, opportunities, before tallying what's broken. This order matters because it shapes your response. When you face a burden with your blessings in mind, you fight from a place of abundance instead of lack. You remember what you're defending, what you've survived before, and why it's worth enduring again. And in that shift, the burden may still be heavy, but it no longer defines the weight of your life. Appearances deceive, character does not. The surface is the easiest thing to manipulate. A polished smile, fine clothes, the right words at the right time. These can be crafted, rehearsed, and worn like a mask. Appearances can be designed to dazzle, to disarm, to convince you that what you see is what you'll get. But the surface tells you nothing of what lies beneath, and those who rely on it most often do so to hide the truth. Character, however, cannot be faked for long. It reveals itself in the moments when no one is watching, in choices made without an audience, in how someone treats those who have nothing to offer them. It's tested in adversity, sharpened in hardship, and illuminated in the small decisions that seem insignificant but slowly define a person's soul. The danger of trusting appearances is that they can be tailored to match exactly what you want to see. A person can study your expectations and reflect them back to you perfectly, creating an image so convincing you don't think to question it. But when pressure comes, when comfort is gone, the mask cracks, and character steps forward, for better or worse. Those who build their lives on appearances are actors in their own play, desperate to keep the curtain from falling. Those who build on character need no stage at all. Their integrity speaks for them, and while appearances fade with time, character endures, revealing the truth long after the illusion has dissolved. Pride is a mask that hides a fragile face. Outward confidence can look unshakable, chin lifted, voice steady, words sharp and certain. But sometimes pride is not strength at all. It's armor worn to keep the world from seeing how breakable the person beneath really feels. The louder the declarations, the firmer the stance, the more it may be covering a quiet fear of being exposed as less than what they pretend to be. Pride protects the ego like a wall protects a wound. It refuses to admit mistakes, to ask for help, or to show vulnerability, because those things feel like cracks in the facade. Admitting fault risks shattering the illusion of control. So instead, pride doubles down, deflecting blame, dismissing others, or inflating its own worth to hide the trembling underneath. This mask can be convincing. To outsiders, it may look like self-assurance, even superiority, but it comes at a cost. Behind the mask, the fragile self remains untouched, unchallenged, and therefore unable to grow. The very protection pride offers becomes a prison, trapping the person inside a role they can never step out of without feeling naked and exposed. Those driven by pride often fear judgment more than failure. They'd rather wear the mask forever than risk showing the face beneath, forgetting that real strength isn't in never breaking. It's in letting yourself be seen, even in your most unguarded moments. But as long as the mask stays on, the applause is for a character, not the person. And when the mask finally slips, the world may see not the giant they pretended to be, but the fragility they worked so hard to hide. Life whispers lessons before it shouts them. The earliest warnings are rarely loud. They come as quiet discomfort, subtle red flags, or small, nagging instincts you can't quite explain. These whispers are life's gentle attempts to steer you, to point out the danger, or to show you the truth before the consequences grow teeth. But too often, they're ignored, drowned out by distraction, ego, or the hope that the uneasy feeling will simply fade. When the whispers go unheard, they don't disappear, they grow. The gentle nudge becomes a push, the faint tension becomes friction, and eventually, what could have been handled with a small adjustment turns into a crisis. Life will keep presenting the lesson until it's learned, and if you refuse to hear it softly, it will make sure you hear it loudly. You see it in relationships that begin with tiny signs of disrespect that escalate into betrayal. You see it in health, where minor symptoms ignored become serious conditions. You see it in decisions, where quiet doubts were brushed aside until they became regrets too heavy to carry. The pattern is always the same, a chance to listen early or a demand to listen later. The whispers are a gift, an early chance to act before the cost becomes unbearable. They speak through intuition, subtle patterns, and the small moments that make you pause. The question is never whether life will try to teach you. It's whether you'll recognize the lesson while it's still spoken in a voice soft enough to ignore. Because if you don't, the shout that follows will be impossible to miss. Seek knowledge from cradle to grave. The hunger to learn is one of the few strengths that can grow richer with time, yet most let it fade as the years pass. Childhood curiosity burns bright, but life's routines, pride, and comfort dull it until many stop seeking altogether. Those who continue, who treat knowledge not as a phase of youth, but as a lifelong pursuit, become dangerous in the best way, adaptable, unshakable, and endlessly evolving. Knowledge is more than facts and skills. It's the ability to see patterns, to connect dots others overlook, to understand both the world and yourself at deeper levels. The one who keeps learning is never truly old, because the mind stays sharp, curious, and alive. Every new lesson, whether born of books, mistakes, or conversations, becomes another tool, another weapon, another key. The danger lies in believing you've learned enough. That arrogance is the death of growth. The world shifts constantly. Technologies change, truths are updated, and the rules that shaped yesterday no longer apply today. Without continuous learning, you become trapped in a fading map of a world that no longer exists, while those still seeking move past you without effort. Lifelong learners carry an edge in every arena: work, relationships, survival, because they're never caught off guard for long. They adapt where others crumble. They see possibilities where others see dead ends. And in the end, the grave will still claim them, as it claims everyone, but it will find them not as the same soul that entered life's cradle. They will meet it armed with every scrap of wisdom they could gather along the way. What you envy may be a burden you can't carry. Envy fixes your gaze on the gleaming surface of someone else's life, convincing you they hold something you desperately lack. You see the rewards, the success, the beauty, the freedom, and assume they exist without cost. But what envy never shows you are the shadows that come with those treasures, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the pressure, the hidden wounds. What you covet might not be a gift at all, but a weight you are not built or willing to bear. We often imagine that taking someone's place would mean inheriting only their joys, forgetting we would also inherit every responsibility, every unseen pain, and every demand that comes with them. The fame you dream of may come with relentless scrutiny. The wealth you desire may come with isolation, mistrust, and the constant fear of loss. The relationship you idealize may be shackled by compromises you'd never accept. The danger of envy is that it blinds you to the full picture. You compare your unedited life to someone else's highlight reel and convince yourself you've been shortchanged. But remove the filter, and you may see that what they carry has bent their spine, even as it sparkles in the light. Sometimes, the very thing that would thrill you in the moment would crush you in the long run, and the life you think you want might be the very one that would strip away the peace, freedom, or joy you already have, simply because you never saw the price tag hanging just out of sight. Even the smallest betrayal leaves a scar. Trust is delicate, built over countless moments of honesty, consistency, and shared vulnerability. It doesn't take a grand act of treachery to damage it. Even the smallest crack can change the shape of a relationship forever. A broken promise, a secret carelessly shared, a truth bent to avoid discomfort. These can seem minor in the moment, but they leave marks that never quite fade. Betrayal works like a fracture. It may heal, but the bone is never exactly the same. Once someone shows you they can step across the line, you can't unsee it. You may forgive, you may move forward, but somewhere in the back of your mind, the question lingers: will they do it again? That question changes the way you trust, the way you open up, and the way you feel in their presence. What makes small betrayals so insidious is that they often come from people you've let close. Strangers can't wound you in the same way. Only those inside your walls can strike where you're unguarded, and when they do, it's not just the act, it's the realization that they chose to value their own comfort, gain, or pride over the bond you shared. Scars are proof of healing, but they're also reminders. They tell you where you've been cut before, where the skin is thinner, where you'll never forget what happened. Even the smallest betrayal doesn't disappear. It shapes the way you trust, the way you guard yourself, and the way you measure the worth of letting someone that close again. The calmest voice often carries the greatest authority. Power doesn't always need to roar. In moments of tension, the voice that remains steady commands more attention than the one that shouts. Calmness in the midst of chaos signals control, control of emotion, control of thought, and control of the situation. It draws people in because it's rare and because it suggests that the person speaking has nothing to prove and nothing to fear. When tempers flare and noise rises, a calm voice cuts through like a clear note in static. It slows the pace of the room, forces others to lean in, and shifts the tone without force. It's not passivity, it's precision. The calm speaker chooses words with care, delivers them without haste, and lets the weight of the message, not the volume, do the work. This authority comes from discipline. Anyone can raise their voice to dominate a moment, but holding steady when others are losing control requires mastery over one's own impulses. It sends a signal: I am not here to compete for noise. I am here to be heard. And people listen differently when they sense you are anchored in something unshaken. In negotiation, leadership, or conflict, the calmest voice becomes the compass. It reassures without promising, corrects without humiliating, and influences without demanding. And long after the shouting fades, those measured words remain, the ones spoken not to overpower, but to guide. That's the quiet kind of authority that doesn't just win attention in the moment, it earns respect that lasts. The one who knows how to rest, knows how to endure. Endurance isn't built by pushing yourself to the breaking point. It's sustained by knowing when to stop, breathe, and gather strength again. Rest is not weakness. It's the silent partner of resilience. Without it, even the strongest body collapses, the sharpest mind dulls, and the most determined spirit burns out long before the finish line. Those who endure are not the ones who run without pause. They are the ones who understand the rhythm of effort and recovery. The world glorifies constant motion, making stillness feel like falling behind, yet endless striving drains the reserves you need for the moments that truly matter. Rest sharpens focus, restores energy, and repairs what strain has worn down. It's in those pauses that clarity often arrives, revealing solutions that frantic effort could never uncover. Those who refuse to rest confuse exhaustion with strength, wearing their depletion like a badge of honor. But fatigue makes you sloppy, short-tempered, and vulnerable to mistakes you'd never make at your best. The wise know that stepping back at the right time isn't quitting, it's fortifying. In war, in work, in life, survival often belongs to the ones who can pace themselves while others race toward collapse. They understand that endurance is not about how hard you push in one moment, but how long you can keep going over time. Rest is the discipline that lets you rise again and again, no matter how many battles lie ahead. Without it, endurance is just a slow form of self-destruction. Fear makes more prisoners than walls. A prison doesn't always need bars to keep someone trapped. Fear builds its own invisible cells, stronger, in many ways, than any wall of stone or steel. It convinces you to stay where you are, to avoid the unknown, to surrender possibilities before they can even be tested. You stop chasing dreams, not because someone told you no, but because you've already told yourself it's impossible. The power of fear lies in its ability to make you police yourself. You rehearse failure in your mind until it feels certain, imagining all the ways you could fall apart before you've taken the first step. The threat becomes so vivid that it overshadows reality, and you end up living under rules no one else has actually imposed. Walls require a builder, but fear builds itself inside your head, brick by brick, each one laid with every doubt, every what if, every memory of pain. It doesn't even need to be true, only believable enough to make you stop moving forward. And once you stop, the prison closes in, making the world outside feel unreachable. Those who've broken free often find the door was never locked. It was their own belief in its strength that kept it shut. Fear thrives in that belief, feeding on hesitation, tightening its grip with every opportunity you let pass. Without a single guard, without a single chain, it can keep you still for a lifetime. And the cruelest part is that it doesn't have to chase you. You'll stay put all on your own. True generosity leaves no debt giving. At its purest, expects nothing in return. It isn't a transaction, a silent contract, or a performance meant to earn praise. It's an act of offering without keeping score. True generosity doesn't bind the receiver in obligation. It frees them. It says, I give because I choose to, not because I want something back. Anything else may look like kindness, but it's just disguised leverage. The difference lies in intention. Conditional generosity carries invisible strings, favors that will be called in later, reminders of what you owe, or a subtle expectation that gratitude should be repaid in kind. This kind of giving traps the receiver, making them feel indebted rather than uplifted. True generosity, however, releases both sides from that weight. The giver walks away without needing acknowledgement, and the receiver is left with nothing but the gift itself. In relationships, true generosity might mean helping someone without keeping a mental tally of past favors. In business, it could be offering guidance or resources without angling for influence. Even in small daily acts, sharing time, offering comfort, giving opportunities, the same principle applies. The gift should stand alone, not serve as currency for future demands. The beauty of true generosity is that it plants seeds without claiming ownership of the garden that grows. It trusts that goodness needs no repayment to be worthwhile, and when giving is done this way, it leaves no shadow of debt, only the quiet, lasting warmth of knowing something was given freely, and that freedom is the real gift. To understand someone, walk the road. They avoid a person's truest self is not always revealed in the stories they tell or the image they project, but in the paths they refuse to tread. The roads they avoid are where their fears live, where their wounds remain unhealed, where the truths they don't want to face still linger. If you want to truly understand them, you have to look beyond where they lead you and toward where they refuse to go. Avoidance leaves traces. It's in the subjects they deflect from, the questions they answer with jokes, the opportunities they reject without reason. It's in the way their tone shifts when certain names are mentioned, or how their gaze drops at the hint of a memory. These are the signposts pointing toward what matters most, even if it's buried in pain or shame. Walking that road, whether through direct conversation, observation, or piecing together the fragments they leave behind, reveals the forces that have shaped them. You see the insecurities they protect, the regrets they carry, the battles they never fought but still feel they lost. This perspective doesn't just show you who they are now, it shows you why. But entering those untraveled places requires patience and care. Push too hard and they retreat further. Move too fast and they shut the gates completely. Yet, if you navigate with empathy, you'll find that the road they avoid is often the key to understanding not just their fears, but their strengths. Because what a person hides can speak louder than everything they choose to show. The truth is heavy. Few can carry it. Truth has a weight that polite lies will never possess. It demands strength to face, courage to speak, and resilience to live by. Some truths shatter illusions we've clung to for years. Others expose flaws in ourselves or in those we love. And once seen, they can't be unseen, making them both a gift and a burden. Most people say they want the truth, but what they often want is a version that feels comfortable. The real thing can cut deep, stripping away the safety of denial and forcing choices that can't be undone. It can cost relationships, dismantle identities, and demand sacrifices far heavier than ignorance ever did. For the one who carries it, truth can feel isolating. Speaking it aloud risks rejection or backlash, and holding it quietly can feel like walking with a stone lodged in your chest. It changes how you see people, how you see the world, and sometimes how the world sees you. Yet truth also has a strange kind of purity. It burns away pretenses, leaving only what is real. But the process is rarely gentle. Those unable to bear its weight will avoid it, dismiss it, or even attack the one who brings it, because to accept it would mean reshaping their entire reality. The heavy truth isn't for the faint-hearted. It requires the strength to carry its full weight without letting it crush you, and the wisdom to know when speaking it will set someone free, and when it will only bury them deeper. Happiness is not owned, only rented through gratitude. People chase happiness as if it's a possession, something they can acquire, lock away, and keep forever. But happiness is not a trophy. It's a temporary state, fleeting by nature, slipping away the moment it's taken for granted. You cannot own it any more than you can own a sunrise. At best, you rent it, and gratitude is the rent you pay. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into treasures. Without it, even the most extraordinary blessings begin to feel dull, routine, and insufficient. You can have everything you once wished for, yet feel empty if you've lost the ability to appreciate it. Gratitude sharpens your vision, allowing you to see value in what's already in your hands instead of endlessly longing for what's not. The reason happiness fades isn't because life always gets worse. It's because we adapt. The mind normalizes joy until it feels like the baseline, and without conscious gratitude, that baseline shifts toward dissatisfaction. Gratitude disrupts this drift. It forces you to stop, notice, and name the things worth cherishing before they slip unnoticed into the background. The danger is believing happiness is permanent, as if once you reach a certain point, it will simply stay. That illusion breeds entitlement, and entitlement is the enemy of joy. Gratitude, on the other hand, is active. It's the daily payment that keeps happiness present in your life. And when you stop paying, the lease expires, and happiness quietly moves out, leaving you wondering why you ever thought it belonged to you in the first place. The one who forgives fastest sleeps best. Holding on to resentment is like keeping a fist clenched around a burning coal. You think you're preparing to throw it, but all the while, it's your own hand that's blistering. Anger and bitterness don't just live in the mind. They burrow into the body, tightening your chest, knotting your stomach, keeping you awake while the person who wronged you sleeps soundly. Forgiveness isn't about excusing the harm or pretending it didn't happen. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying it. The faster you can let go, the sooner the wound stops bleeding into every corner of your life. Forgiveness is a kind of release valve, easing the pressure before it consumes you entirely. Those who forgive quickly often carry a lightness others envy. Their nights aren't spent replaying arguments or crafting speeches they'll never give. Their minds aren't crowded with ghosts of what should have been said or done. Instead, they sleep in peace, unchained from the events of the day, ready to wake without yesterday's poison still in their veins. This doesn't mean they're weak or naive. It means they value their own well-being more than they value keeping score. They understand that clinging to pain doesn't protect you. It just prolongs your suffering. By releasing it sooner, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your rest. And in a world where so many lie awake, wrestling with grudges, the one who forgives fastest drifts off first, because their heart has nothing left to fight through in the dark. Hope without action is a beautiful lie. Hope can feel like light in the darkness, a quiet promise that things will get better. It's comforting, intoxicating even, to hold on to visions of what could be. But without action, hope is nothing more than a soft lullaby that keeps you still while time slips away. It looks and feels like progress in the mind, yet in reality, it's a disguise for inaction, a dream with no bridge to reach it. The danger of hope without movement is how easily it deceives. You can spend years imagining the life you want, telling yourself you're being patient when in truth, you're waiting for something that will never arrive. The vision is beautiful, but it is hollow, and its beauty makes it harder to let go. Real change demands motion, risk, effort, sacrifice. Hope should be the spark, not the shelter. The ones who transform their lives are not those who simply believe things will improve, but those who plant, build, and fight for what they hope to see. Without action, hope becomes a kind of emotional narcotic, easing the discomfort of reality just enough to keep you from doing the hard work to change it. The most brutal truth is this: life doesn't hand out rewards for waiting with faith alone. It responds to movement, to sweat, to relentless persistence. And if you refuse to move, the hope you cradle so tightly will quietly expire, leaving you with nothing but the memory of a dream you never dared to chase. The hands that give are never empty. Giving is often seen as a transaction, a loss from one hand to fill another. But the paradox of generosity is that when you give freely, without expectation, your hands are never truly empty. Something always remains: the bond you strengthen, the trust you build, the quiet knowledge that you've added weight to someone else's hope. These are not material returns, yet they fill you in ways nothing bought can match. The act of giving shifts something inside you. It replaces the fear of scarcity with the confidence of abundance, not because you have everything, but because you understand that value isn't only measured in what you keep. You may part with money, time, or effort, but what you gain is often harder to name: dignity, gratitude, connection. The more you give, the more you realize you were never as empty as you feared. Some will see giving as weakness, assuming that to give is to be taken from, but those who live with open hands know the opposite. What flows out has a way of flowing back, often from directions you never expected. Even when nothing returns in kind, the act itself becomes part of who you are, a wealth that can't be stolen. Hands that hoard grow stiff and closed. Hands that give remain open to receive life in all its forms. And in that openness, you find that generosity doesn't deplete, it transforms, leaving you fuller than before with something no one can take away. When the roots are deep, there's no reason to fear the wind. Strength doesn't come from avoiding storms. It comes from being grounded enough to withstand them. Deep roots are built through character, resilience, and a clear sense of who you are. They anchor you when life shakes, when the winds of change or chaos threaten to tear you apart. Without them, even a gentle breeze can topple you. With them, you can face hurricanes without breaking. Roots are the values you refuse to compromise, the lessons learned through hardship, the inner stability that can't be bought or borrowed. They're formed slowly, through repeated tests, failures that teach, and choices that align with your core beliefs. Each challenge drives them deeper, until what once would have uprooted you barely makes you sway. Fear comes from fragility, from knowing, even if only subconsciously, that you're not anchored. This is why some cling desperately to stability while others stand calm in chaos. The latter have done the unseen work, building themselves in a way that no external force can strip away their foundation. The wind will always come: unexpected losses, betrayal, upheaval, change you didn't choose. But when your roots run deep, you meet it with steadiness, not panic. You bend without breaking, adapt without losing your shape. The world may see only the storm around you, but you feel the quiet certainty beneath you. And in that certainty, the wind is no longer something to fear. It's just another reminder of how firmly you stand. Not every open door should be walked through. Opportunity is seductive. When a door swings open, it calls to something deep within us: the curiosity to see what's on the other side, the fear of missing out, the belief that movement always means progress. But not every path is meant to be taken, and not every offer is meant to be accepted. Some open doors are traps disguised as invitations, detours that pull you away from where you're truly meant to go. The danger lies in the illusion that availability equals destiny. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Some doors lead to rooms that drain you, relationships that corrode you, deals that look golden on the surface but are rotting underneath. And the people holding those doors open aren't always doing it for your benefit. Sometimes they're waiting for you to step into a space where they hold all the control. Wisdom means learning to pause before crossing the threshold. Ask yourself who opened it, why it's open now, and what it will cost you to enter. The best doors often require knocking, effort, and patience. They don't fling themselves wide with suspicious ease. Every choice to walk through one door is a choice to leave others behind. If you wander into the wrong one, you might find yourself locked inside, watching the door you truly wanted close for good. Opportunity is everywhere, but discernment is rare, and in the end, it's not the number of doors you've walked through that shapes your life. It's whether you had the courage to walk past the ones that weren't meant for you. Pain is a teacher. No one wants, but everyone needs it arrives uninvited, stripping away comfort and certainty, forcing you into lessons you never asked for. Pain is rarely welcomed because it doesn't whisper, it demands, it disrupts, it reshapes. Yet beneath its harshness lies a truth few want to admit. Some lessons can't be learned through ease or pleasure. There are truths you can only discover when you're forced to walk barefoot over the sharp edges of life. Pain teaches through presence. It doesn't let you look away. It makes you confront parts of yourself you might otherwise ignore. Your limits, your resilience, your blind spots. It reveals what truly matters by stripping away what doesn't. And though it feels like an enemy in the moment, pain often ends up being the clearest guide you've ever had. Its lessons are carved deep. The relationships you value more fiercely after loss, the strength you discover after enduring hardship, the wisdom you gain from failures that once left you gasping. Comfort can keep you still. Pain pushes you forward, reshaping you into someone who knows how to survive storms instead of just sunny days. No one seeks it out, yet everyone is shaped by it. The scars it leaves are not just reminders of suffering, they are proof of transformation. And while you may curse it while it's with you, time often reveals that pain's greatest cruelty is also its greatest gift. It changes you in ways nothing else can, and it leaves you stronger for having carried it. Choose friends who sharpen your mind, not dull it. The people you surround yourself with quietly shape the person you become. Some will challenge your thinking, ignite your curiosity, and push you toward growth. Others will smother your ambition, mock your dreams, or encourage you to settle for less than you're capable of. Over time, their influence seeps into your choices, your standards, even your view of yourself, either sharpening your edge or wearing it down to nothing. Friends who sharpen your mind don't always tell you what you want to hear. They ask hard questions, point out blind spots, and refuse to let you coast on comfort. They celebrate your wins, but won't let you hide from your mistakes. Their presence sparks ideas, stirs motivation, and reminds you of the bigger picture when you start to lose sight of it. By contrast, those who dull your mind lure you into the slow erosion of mediocrity. They avoid deep conversations, encourage habits that drain you, and subtly reward you for staying the same. At first, it feels easier, even pleasant, but ease can be the first step toward stagnation. The danger is that dulling happens quietly. You don't wake up one day less driven. It happens over countless small choices influenced by the people closest to you. That's why choosing friends is choosing a future. Keep the ones who keep you sharp, because they'll not only push you forward, they'll remind you that the edge you carry is worth protecting, and that a mind left unchallenged is a blade left to rust. An empty mind welcomes poison. A mind left unguarded is like an open vessel. Whatever is poured in will fill it, whether it's truth, lies, wisdom, or poison. When you do not actively seek knowledge, question ideas, or sharpen your own thinking, you leave space for others to plant their narratives unchecked. And not everyone who offers you words has your best interest in mind. Manipulators, ideologues, and opportunists prey on emptiness. They feed it with half-truths, emotional triggers, and convincing stories until their version of reality becomes yours. Without a foundation of your own, you accept what you're given, not because it's right, but because it's the only thing there. A void doesn't stay empty for long. Something always rushes in to fill it. An untrained mind can't distinguish nourishment from poison. It swallows opinions as facts, desires as needs, and fear as truth. Over time, the poison becomes familiar, even comfortable, making it harder to recognize the harm it's doing. And by the time you realize you've been drinking from a tainted source, the toxins may already be shaping your beliefs, your choices, and your identity. The way to protect yourself is not by sealing your mind shut, it's by filling it intentionally. Curiosity, critical thinking, and self-education act as a filter, allowing you to examine what enters before it settles. Because when your mind is full of truth, understanding, and self-awareness, there's no room left for poison to take root. The danger isn't just in what others pour in, it's in how ready you are to drink it without question. What you repeat becomes your reality. The human mind is a sculptor, and repetition is its chisel. Every thought you replay, every word you speak, every habit you practice carves deeper into the shape of your life. At first, these repetitions may seem harmless, a passing phrase, a small routine, a fleeting belief. But over time, they sink into the subconscious, quietly setting the boundaries of what you think is possible. If you tell yourself you're unlucky, unworthy, or doomed to fail, those words stop being opinions and start becoming instructions to your mind. You begin to notice only the proof that supports them, filtering the world through the lens you've rehearsed. The opposite is just as true. Repeat confidence, gratitude, and possibility often enough, and your mind starts seeking ways to confirm them. Habits work the same way. The actions you choose daily, even the smallest ones, stack upon each other until they form the structure of your reality. One skipped workout seems meaningless, but skipping becomes a pattern. One moment of discipline feels minor, but discipline repeated becomes identity. Repetition is how truth, real or imagined, takes root. The danger is that most people don't realize they are training themselves every day, unconsciously rehearsing a version of life they don't actually want. But the moment you become aware, you can choose the script you repeat. And when you do, your reality begins to shift. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because you've been quietly building the version of it you believe in most. Beware the man with nothing to lose. A man stripped of everything, security, reputation, purpose, stands in a place most will never understand. Without possessions, relationships, or status to protect, he no longer plays by the rules that bind others. Fear of consequence is what keeps most people predictable, restrained, and safe to be around. But when there is nothing left to take from him, there is nothing left to threaten him with. And that makes him dangerous in a way few are prepared for. This kind of man can move without hesitation because loss no longer holds weight over him. He may take risks others would never dare, push boundaries most wouldn't cross, or act with a ruthlessness that comes from knowing there's nothing else that can be taken. Negotiations with him are unstable, confrontations unpredictable, and alliances fragile because his decisions aren't tied to preserving comfort or stability. In sum, this absence of attachment breeds recklessness, destruction, and disregard for the damage left behind. In others, it fuels a relentless, almost unstoppable drive, because failure is meaningless when you have nothing left to protect. Either way, the man with nothing to lose operates on a playing field where caution is irrelevant, and that makes him unpredictable to the point of danger. The greatest mistake is assuming he values the same stakes you do. When he doesn't, he cannot be cornered, and he cannot be controlled. And in a world where leverage is power, the one who cannot be leveraged is the one you should fear most. Learn from the past, but don't live in it. The past is a teacher with lessons carved in triumphs and mistakes, a map drawn in both victories and wounds. It holds wisdom that can guide you, warn you, and sharpen your instincts. But when you stay there too long, replaying what could have been, reliving what should have been, you turn the past from a guide into a prison. What once served to teach you begins to chain you. Learning from the past means facing it honestly. You acknowledge where you were wrong, where you were right, and where you could have chosen differently. You take the patterns, the red flags, the moments of courage, and carry them forward as tools. Every scar, every misstep, every small success can be repurposed into strength if you let them serve the future instead of replacing it. Living in the past, however, locks your eyes backward while life moves forward. Regret becomes a weight you drag with you. Nostalgia turns into longing for something that no longer exists. You end up walking the same mental corridors, hoping to open doors that have long since closed, missing the new ones right in front of you. The danger is subtle. The longer you live in old chapters, the more you convince yourself that the story has already been told, but the past is only one part of your life. It's not the whole of it. Carry its lessons like tools in your hands, not shackles on your wrists, so you can step into what's ahead without being pulled under by what's behind. Your circle shapes your future. The people closest to you are not just companions, they are architects, quietly influencing the structure of your thoughts, habits, and ambitions. Every conversation, every shared value, every reaction they have to your dreams leaves an imprint. Over time, those imprints shape the person you become and, with it, the path you walk. If you surround yourself with cynics, their doubt becomes the lens through which you view your own potential. If you keep company with the ambitious, their drive stirs something in you, pushing you toward more than you thought possible. We mirror the energy we absorb, often without noticing, until our lives reflect the attitudes and beliefs of the people we let closest. Your circle affects not just what you aim for, but what you tolerate. Friends and partners can normalize mediocrity or inspire excellence, justify your excuses, or challenge your limits. They can make you feel safe staying where you are, or uncomfortable enough to grow. The danger lies in thinking you can stay immune to their influence. No one does. You will rise or fall to the standard of those around you. The future is not shaped in grand moments alone. It's shaped in the quiet, everyday exchanges with the people who fill your space. Over time, you start speaking like them, thinking like them, wanting what they want. Choosing your circle is in many ways choosing your destiny. And if you wouldn't trade places with the people you spend the most time with, you might already be trading your future without realizing it. The wise speak to uplift, not to impress. Words can be weapons, trophies, or tools, and the truly wise choose the last. Their aim is not to dazzle with cleverness or parade their knowledge for applause, but to leave the listener stronger than before the conversation began. They understand that language can either build walls of ego or bridges of connection, and that the desire to impress often serves the speaker more than the listener. When someone speaks to uplift, their words are chosen with care. They're not concerned with being the smartest person in the room. They're focused on making the room smarter, braver, and more alive with possibility. Their sentences carry encouragement, guidance, or clarity, not hidden boasts. You feel seen in their presence, not overshadowed. This doesn't mean they avoid truth or soften every edge. The wise know that real uplift can mean hard truths delivered with respect, aimed at growth rather than humiliation. They speak in a way that invites reflection instead of defensiveness, leaving you with something to hold on to rather than something to recover from. Those who speak only to impress may earn momentary admiration, but it fades quickly, often replaced by distance or resentment. Those who speak to uplift create ripples that last, because they give something of value that echoes long after the conversation ends. And while the impressive voice seeks to be remembered, The uplifting voice ensures it's the listener who walks away feeling unforgettable. Great storms reveal strong foundations. Calm days make it easy to believe everything is steady. Walls stand tall, roofs stay intact, and the ground feels unshakable when the skies are clear. But storms, those violent, unrelenting forces, strip away illusions. They test not the beauty of the structure, but the strength of what it's built on. And when the winds howl and the rain pounds, weakness cannot hide. In life, these storms come as crises, betrayals, losses, and unexpected upheavals. They tear through comfort and predictability, revealing which relationships are anchored in trust and which were held together by convenience. They show whether your principles stand firm or crumble under pressure, whether your character is built on something solid or only painted to look that way. A strong foundation doesn't mean you won't feel the storm. It means you can take the hit without collapsing. It's the discipline you built before temptation arrived, the resilience you forged before tragedy struck, the loyalty that holds even when it's costly. Those who have built on truth, integrity, and preparation may sway, may crack, but they don't fall. And when the storm passes, the difference is unmistakable. Some are left with only rubble, realizing too late that they built on sand. Others emerge battered but standing, their strength no longer assumed but proven. In this way, the storms we fear most often give us the clearest vision, showing us not only who and what will endure, but also what must be rebuilt from the ground up. Time spent alone is rarely wasted. Solitude is often mistaken for emptiness, as if being alone means something is missing. But time spent with only yourself can be some of the most valuable time you ever have. It strips away the noise, the constant pull of other people's needs and opinions, and leaves you with the raw truth of your own thoughts. In that space, you can hear what the world's volume drowns out, your own voice. Alone, you're free from performance. There's no need to please, to prove, to match anyone's rhythm but your own. That freedom can lead to clarity, the kind that's hard to find in crowded rooms. You begin to notice what you actually want, what you actually think, and who you actually are when no one is watching. It's in solitude that ideas are born, wounds begin to heal, and ambitions take root. It's where you can recalibrate after being pulled in too many directions, where you can sharpen your mind without distraction, and where you can simply rest without explanation. The fear of being alone makes some people fill every hour with company, but constant presence can blur your edges. Time alone sharpens them. It teaches self-reliance, deepens self-understanding, and strengthens the ability to stand firmly on your own, so that when you return to others, you bring more than you take. Far from being wasted, solitude is an investment. It's the ground where self-respect grows, the forge where resilience is shaped, and the quiet space where you learn that your own company is not just enough. It can be exactly what you needed all along. Love without respect is just possession. Affection can be intoxicating. Warm words, constant attention, the feeling of being wanted so deeply that it seems like proof of love. But without respect, that love is hollow. It isn't a partnership, it's ownership. Respect is what recognizes you as an equal, a person with your own mind, boundaries, and autonomy. Without it, love becomes a cage, even if it's lined with soft words and grand gestures. Possession hides behind the language of devotion. It says, I can't live without you, but means I can't control you if you leave. It demands your time, dictates your choices, and punishes your independence, all while insisting it's for your own good. It feeds on closeness, not to nurture, but to keep you within reach at all times. This isn't love, it's fear of losing ownership. Real love respects your individuality. It celebrates your wins without envy, supports your dreams even when they lead you in new directions, and accepts your no without punishment. Possession, however, shrinks you. It convinces you that your world should revolve around one person, and any attempt to reclaim space or freedom becomes an act of betrayal in their eyes. The danger is that possession can feel flattering at first. Being the center of someone's universe can mimic the intensity of deep love, but over time, it suffocates. Without respect, there is no trust, only surveillance. No partnership, only control. And no matter how much passion burns in that space, it will never be love, only a grip disguised as an embrace. Those who refuse change will be changed by force. Life moves, whether you're ready or not. Seasons shift, circumstances evolve, and the ground beneath you changes shape while you're still trying to stand still. Resisting change may feel like safety, but it's an illusion. The refusal to adapt doesn't stop the tide. It just ensures you'll be swept away by it when it finally rises too high. When you fight change, you hand over your power. Instead of guiding your own course, you become a passenger dragged by events you could have navigated. Jobs disappear, relationships evolve, markets shift, and nature itself reshapes the world with no concern for your comfort. If you cling too tightly to what was, you're left unprepared for what is, and even less ready for what's coming. Sometimes the force that changes you is sudden, a crisis, a loss, a disaster that rips you from the life you knew. Other times, it's slow, almost invisible, until one day you realize the world has moved on and you no longer know how to belong in it. Either way, the result is the same. Change arrives and you are transformed, whether willingly or by the pressure of inevitability. Adaptation is the difference between being broken by change and being strengthened by it. Those who embrace it early bend with the wind, learning, evolving, and steering themselves into the future on their own terms. Those who resist are bent anyway, but by then, it's the world that decides their shape. Even the tallest tree started as a seed. Every towering achievement, every unshakable strength, every person who seems untouchable in their success began as something small, fragile, and overlooked. The tallest tree was once a seed, buried in darkness, unseen by the world, relying on nothing but time, patience, and the quiet persistence to push through the soil. Greatness never arrives fully formed. It grows, layer by layer, in seasons of both abundance and struggle. Seeds don't sprout overnight, and neither do dreams. There is a period where nothing seems to be happening, where the work is invisible and the effort feels unrewarded. But beneath the surface, roots are forming, anchoring you, feeding you, preparing you to withstand the storms ahead. Without those roots, the first strong wind could topple you, no matter how quickly you've grown. The tallest tree didn't get there without weathering harsh seasons. It faced drought, storms, and countless obstacles that could have ended its growth. Yet each challenge carved strength into its rings, made it sturdier, and taught it how to reach higher while staying grounded. It's easy to envy someone at their full height, forgetting the years they spent pushing through the soil. But if you understand the process, you stop rushing your own growth. You see that the small beginnings, the invisible work, the quiet persistence, these are not delays. They are the very things that make towering heights possible. And one day, if you keep growing, you'll stand tall, not just because you reach the sky, but because your roots run deeper than anyone can see. The truth will cost you friends, but buy you freedom. Speaking the truth can be an act of quiet rebellion, because not everyone wants to hear it, especially when it threatens the illusions they cling to. Some will turn from you, not because you were cruel, but because your honesty forces them to confront something they'd rather avoid. Friendships built on comfort instead of authenticity can crack under that weight, and in losing them, it may feel as though you've traded connection for loneliness. But the truth, once spoken, has a way of unshackling you. No more rehearsing what to say to keep the peace. No more bending yourself to fit the shape others expect. No more carrying the burden of unspoken words that gnaw at you in silence. It frees your mind from the exhausting task of maintaining a false harmony, even if that means walking through a storm of disapproval. The friends who remain after the truth are the ones who value integrity over flattery, growth over comfort. They may challenge you, but they will not ask you to be smaller than you are. In that circle, your words carry weight because they know they are real, not tailored to please. Truth is expensive in the short term. It can strip away people, opportunities, even the ease of certain relationships. But what it leaves behind is worth far more: the freedom to live without the constant fear of being exposed, the ability to stand by your own words, and the rare peace that comes from knowing your life is no longer built on a lie. Anger is often grief in disguise. On the surface, anger roars. It's loud, sharp, and urgent. But beneath that heat, there is often something quieter, heavier, and far more fragile: grief. Many eruptions of rage are not born from pure hostility, but from a deep ache over something lost: a relationship, an expectation, a sense of safety, a version of yourself that will never return. Anger is the armor we put on when grief feels too raw to expose. Grief is vulnerable. Its soft edges and open wounds, a surrender that admits we are hurting. Anger, on the other hand, feels like action. It lets us stand instead of collapse, shout instead of sob, strike instead of break. In moments of loss or disappointment, rage can feel safer than mourning because it directs the pain outward instead of letting it swallow us from within. The danger is that when grief wears the mask of anger, the real wound goes unhealed. We fight battles that don't matter, push away people who could comfort us, and feed a fire that only burns us in the end. The truth beneath the fury remains untouched, silently shaping our behavior and keeping us locked in cycles of reaction. If you strip the anger back far enough, you often find the sadness you didn't want to feel, the longing you didn't want to admit, the reality you didn't want to accept. And until that grief is acknowledged, the anger will keep rising, not because you're simply mad, but because you're mourning in a language that hides the true depth of your loss. The first to apologize is the bravest. An apology may seem simple, a few words, a moment of humility, but in reality, it is one of the most vulnerable acts a person can offer. It requires lowering the defenses, setting aside pride, and admitting fault in a world that often confuses apology with weakness. To speak those words first, without knowing how they'll be received, is to step into uncertainty with nothing but courage in your hands. The bravery lies in the risk. An apology opens you up to rejection, to the possibility that your sincerity will be ignored or met with anger. It exposes your mistakes without guarantee of forgiveness. It forces you to face the discomfort of your own humanity and say, "I could have done better." Many would rather cling to stubborn silence than endure that moment of naked honesty. Being first means breaking the standoff. It means taking responsibility before the other person does, not because you're entirely at fault, but because you value peace over ego. It's a choice to lead the way toward healing, even if you have to do it alone. And when it's genuine, an apology has the power to soften walls that seemed unbreakable. It can change the temperature of a conversation, shift the course of a relationship, and remind both sides that connection matters more than pride. The one who apologizes first does not lose, they lead, proving that strength is not always about standing tallest, but about bowing low enough to make room for understanding to grow. The one who asks the most questions learns the most answers. Curiosity is the key that unlocks doors others don't even notice. Those who ask questions refuse to be content with surface-level understanding. They dig, they challenge, they explore the spaces between what is known and what is assumed. Every question is an invitation for truth to reveal itself, for wisdom to step forward, for the world to be seen in a way it hasn't before. Questions strip away the illusion of certainty. They turn vague ideas into clear knowledge and expose the gaps in what you think you know. More importantly, they force others to think deeper, to articulate, and sometimes to confront truths they've avoided. In this way, asking questions isn't just about gathering facts, it's about shaping the conversation, guiding it toward real understanding. Those who ask the most questions inevitably learn more because they aren't afraid to admit they don't already have the answer. Pride closes the door to learning. Humility opens it wide, and each answer gained becomes a stepping stone to better questions, creating a cycle of growth that never ends. But the real power lies in the questions that make people pause, the ones that can't be answered by rote, the ones that slip past defenses and strike at the heart of things. These are the questions that reveal character, uncover motives, and change minds. In a world where many talk to be heard, the one who listens, thinks, and asks is the one who leaves every room with more than they brought in. Never trade long-term peace for short-term pleasure. The lure of immediate gratification is powerful, a rush of excitement, a moment of escape, the sweetness of getting what you want now. But pleasure bought at the expense of your future comes with a price far higher than it first appears. The decision might feel harmless in the moment, but the consequences often linger long after the thrill fades, turning a quick indulgence into a lasting weight. Short-term pleasure blinds you to the ripple effects. You tell yourself it's just this once, that you'll handle the fallout later. But later always comes, and it's often uglier than you imagined. Trust broken, opportunities lost, relationships damaged, self-respect eroded. In chasing the high, you plant seeds that grow into regret. Long-term peace, on the other hand, is not loud or intoxicating. It's steady, quiet, and often harder to see in the moment. It comes from the choices that protect your integrity, your stability, and your future self. It's turning down the temptation that would unravel what you've worked for. It's resisting the fleeting thrill that could destroy what truly matters. The danger is that pleasure is immediate and visible, while peace is distant and invisible until it's gone. Many don't realize the value of peace until they've traded it away, only to find it's far harder to rebuild than it was to protect. The moments you feel most tempted are often the ones that will test who you are, and if you choose peace, you may lose a moment of excitement, but you'll keep the life you won't have to run from later. The wound you hide festers. The longest pain kept in the dark does not disappear, it grows. A hidden wound might seem safer out of sight, shielded from judgment or exposure, but in that secrecy, it becomes something far more dangerous. What isn't spoken, processed, or faced doesn't heal, it festers. The longer it's buried, the deeper it infects everything around it. Your thoughts, your choices, your relationships. We hide wounds because vulnerability feels risky. Admitting we're hurt can feel like surrender, like giving someone else power over us. So we plaster on a smile, insist we're fine, and lock the pain away where no one can reach it. But inside, it lingers. Resentment hardens, bitterness spreads, and the wound starts dictating our actions in ways we don't even notice. Unseen pain has a way of leaking into the present. It makes us overreact to small slights, mistrust people who've done nothing wrong, or sabotage opportunities that feel too close to the source of the original hurt. The wound whispers its warnings in moments of quiet, convincing us to stay guarded even when there's no real threat. Exposure is uncomfortable, but it's also the only path to real healing. Like a physical injury, emotional wounds need air, light, and care to close properly. The longer you hide them, the more they control you from the shadows. And one day, you realize the thing you thought you were protecting yourself from was never as dangerous as the poison you let grow in its place. A wise man listens to fools but does not follow them. Even a fool's words carry value, not in their guidance, but in what they reveal. To listen is not to agree, it is to gather information, to understand motives, and to see the world through another lens, even if that lens is clouded. The wise know that shutting out voices entirely means risking blindness to perspectives, intentions, and warnings hidden within them. Listening to fools teaches discernment. You learn to separate noise from truth, to spot flawed reasoning, to recognize the tone of arrogance without substance. Every misguided opinion becomes a lesson in what not to do, sharpening your judgment without needing to repeat the same mistakes. But the wisdom lies in the boundary, absorbing what's said without being carried by it. The danger is in confusing hearing with following, in letting persistence or emotion disguise poor advice as insight. A fool's conviction can be persuasive, but conviction without understanding is a path lined with traps. The wise man can nod, ask questions, and hear a fool out without surrendering his direction. He treats every voice as a piece of the larger puzzle, even if some pieces don't fit, and while others may be swept along by the loudest or most confident speaker, he walks his own road, guided not by who speaks the most, but by what is true. Listening costs nothing. Following the wrong voice can cost everything. You can't pour from an empty cup. There's a quiet danger in giving until you're drained. The belief that selflessness means emptying yourself completely for others. At first, it feels noble, even admirable, to keep showing up, to keep saying yes, to keep pouring out your time, energy, and care. But without replenishment, generosity becomes depletion, and the very thing that once made you capable of helping becomes the reason you can't. An empty cup has nothing left to offer. When you neglect your own needs, sleep, health, peace of mind, you begin giving from a place of exhaustion. Your patience shortens, your clarity fades, and your warmth cools. You may still be present physically, but the best parts of you are worn thin. Those you're trying to help may not notice at first, but eventually the cracks show. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation that allows your giving to be sustainable. Rest, boundaries, and time for yourself refill the cup so you can pour without resentment or burnout. A full cup overflows naturally. An empty one must be forced, and the strain leaves both you and those you serve with less than you deserve. Life will always have demands, and people will always need you. But if you ignore your own well-being in the process, the cost will be greater than the help you've given. The truth is simple. You serve others best when you first take the time to restore yourself, because only then can what you give come from abundance rather than survival. Dreams die faster without discipline than without talent. Talent can open a door, but discipline is what keeps it from closing. The world is full of gifted people whose abilities dazzled for a moment and then vanished, not because they weren't good enough, but because they couldn't sustain the work required to turn potential into permanence. Talent might make the start easier, but without discipline, it withers before it can bloom. Discipline is the daily grind that doesn't care about mood or motivation. It's showing up when you're tired, practicing when you'd rather rest, pushing through the moments when no one is watching and no applause is coming. It's the force that turns flashes of brilliance into lasting achievement. Without it, even the most extraordinary talent becomes nothing more than a story of what could have been. What makes discipline so powerful is that it compounds. Every small, consistent effort builds momentum, sharpens skill, and strengthens resilience. Talent alone can make you impressive. Discipline can make you unstoppable. The danger is that talent can create a false sense of security. When you're naturally good at something, it's tempting to believe you'll always be ahead, but there will always be someone with less talent but more persistence, and they will outlast you. Dreams don't die in a single day. They die slowly, in skipped practices, abandoned plans, and excuses disguised as reasons. And when the dream finally collapses, it won't be because you lack the ability. It will be because you lack the discipline to protect and grow it until it could stand on its own. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. Not every person who enters your life deserves a seat where you share your trust, your time, and your energy. Your table, whether literal or symbolic, is sacred space. It's where you give the best of yourself, where your guard drops, and where influence is closest. Letting the wrong people sit there means giving them access to your heart, your plans, and the parts of you that can't easily be rebuilt if they're broken. Some arrive at your table with warmth and good intentions. Others come with appetites that have nothing to do with nourishment. They take without giving, listen without truly hearing, and study you not to understand but to use. The danger isn't always obvious at first. They may seem charming, helpful, even loyal, until the moment you realize their presence costs more than it gives. Protecting your table is not about arrogance. It's about discernment. You can be kind without being open to everyone. You can wish someone well without handing them the silverware to cut into you. Boundaries are the walls that keep your table a place of safety and growth rather than a stage for manipulation or harm. The truth is, not everyone who smiles at you has earned the right to be close to you. Some belong in the crowd, some at the outer edges, and only a few at the seats nearest to your heart. Who you allow there will shape your peace, your progress, and the life you're building. So choose carefully, because the wrong guest can spoil the whole feast. A clear conscience is the best pillow. Rest doesn't come from the softness of the bed or the weight of the blankets. It comes from the absence of unrest within yourself. A clear conscience is the quiet knowing that you acted with integrity, that you spoke truth when it mattered, and that you did not betray your own values to get what you wanted. It is the peace of having nothing to hide, no lies to defend, no wrongs gnawing at the edges of your mind when the lights go out. Sleep is fragile when guilt or deceit lingers. Every decision you regret replays itself in the dark. Every compromise you made at the cost of your principles creeps back into your thoughts. You toss, turn, and calculate justifications that never quite feel solid enough to silence the unease. A clear conscience removes that weight. Even in hardship, even when outcomes aren't perfect, you can rest knowing you acted as best you could. This clarity doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty, the courage to admit mistakes, and the willingness to make them right when possible. The world offers many comforts to help you sleep: expensive mattresses, dim lighting, the hum of white noise, but none of them quiet the mind like living in alignment with your own moral compass. In that stillness, there are no questions left to answer, no shadows creeping in from choices you wish you hadn't made. There is only the deep, unshakable rest that comes from knowing your heart is clean and that nothing within you needs to be hidden from the night. The more you need applause, the less you hear truth. The craving for applause is seductive. It feels like validation, like proof that you're enough. But the louder the clapping gets, the harder it becomes to hear the quiet, uncomfortable truths that would actually help you grow. When approval becomes your fuel, criticism feels like an attack, and truth, especially the kind that challenges you, starts sounding like noise you want to silence. Applause can blind you. It rewards what's popular, not necessarily what's right. People will cheer for what entertains them, for what confirms their beliefs, for what keeps them comfortable, and if your worth depends on that approval, you'll start shaping yourself to keep the noise going, avoiding risks, avoiding honesty, avoiding anything that might cost you their favor. The danger is subtle but deadly to growth. Those who love you enough to tell you the hard truths will be drowned out by the crowd's praise. You'll dismiss them thinking, if everyone else thinks I'm great, why should I listen to you? But the crowd doesn't care about your evolution. They care about what you give them now. The moment you stop pleasing them, they move on. Truth is rarely delivered with applause. It's often quiet, uncomfortable, and easy to ignore when you're surrounded by cheering. But the applause fades, and when it does, you're left with the consequences of the truths you refuse to hear. In chasing the comfort of praise, you risk losing the very thing that applause can never give you. real growth, real depth, and the respect that remains when the clapping stops. Truth fears no investigation. The truth stands unshaken under the weight of scrutiny. It doesn't need to hide behind half answers, evasions, or shifting stories, because it can withstand every question, every challenge, every searchlight aimed at it. When something is true, it welcomes examination, not because it enjoys being doubted, but because every look only confirms its reality. Lies, however, thrive in shadows. They avoid direct questions, bristle at accountability, and deflect attention to anything but themselves. The moment you begin to pull at their edges, they fray. They demand loyalty over logic, faith over facts, and obedience over understanding, because their survival depends on people never looking too closely. This is why those who fear investigation often fear the truth itself. They mask their resistance with indignation, claiming the questions are an attack, or insisting that doubt is disloyalty. But truth has no need for such defenses. It gains strength from clarity, not concealment. When you seek truth, you have nothing to lose from examination except illusion. When you avoid it, you're protecting something fragile, something that can't survive the light. The more fiercely someone resists being questioned, the more certain you can be that what they're guarding is not truth, but something built to look like it. Truth's greatest proof is its endurance. It can be tested, dissected, doubted, and challenged, and it will remain. The only thing that investigation can destroy is the lie pretending to be it, and the truth will never fear the chance to prove itself. You can't cross the same river. Quiet life is in constant motion. Nothing stays exactly as it was. Not the world, not the people around you, and not you. The river you step into today is never the same river you stepped into before. The current has shifted, the water has moved on, and so have you. Even if the scene looks familiar, time has already altered it, carrying away what was and replacing it with something new. This truth is both beautiful and cruel. It means that moments you love cannot be perfectly recreated, no matter how hard you try. The conversation that changed everything, the night that felt infinite, the version of someone you once knew, all of it has flowed downstream. You may return to the place, but not to the exact moment, because time has already reshaped the banks. It also means you are not the same person who first crossed that water. Every choice, every loss, every triumph changes the way you move through the world. You may step into what seems like the same situation, but you bring a different self to it, one shaped by the currents you've already endured. The danger lies in trying to live in the past, chasing a moment that can't return. The gift lies in embracing change, knowing that while you can't have the same river twice, you can discover new waters, each carrying its own beauty, challenge, and truth. The flow is unstoppable, and the only choice is whether to fight it or step in and let it take you somewhere new. What you don't change, you choose. Every situation you leave untouched, every problem you decide to live with, every pattern you tolerate becomes, by your inaction, something you've agreed to keep. It may not feel like a choice. You may tell yourself it's too hard, too complicated, or not the right time. But the truth is that every day you allow it to remain, you're casting your silent vote for it to stay. This is the quiet power of inaction. It disguises itself as neutrality, when in reality, it is permission. By not addressing the job that drains you, you choose exhaustion. By not confronting the relationship that hurts you, you choose the hurt. By not breaking the habits that pull you down, you choose the weight they add to your life. Change is uncomfortable. It demands energy, courage, and the willingness to face the unknown. Choosing to act means risking failure, rejection, or loss. That's why many stay where they are, because even misery feels safer than uncertainty. But comfort in the familiar is a slow poison. It numbs you into accepting a life you never actually wanted. When you realize that what you don't change, you're actively choosing, the illusion of helplessness fades. You see that your silence, your delay, your endurance are all forms of agreement. And once you see it, you can no longer pretend it's beyond your control. You either keep choosing it or you choose to do something about it. Humility opens doors. Pride cannot. Pride pushes to the front of the line, demanding recognition, insisting on being heard, and fighting to be right. It thrives on proving itself, but in its noise and self-importance, it often slams doors it doesn't realize it needed. Humility moves differently. It doesn't demand entry, yet it finds doors quietly swinging open, not from force, but from invitation. Humility creates space for connection. It listens before speaking, values the perspectives of others, and admits when it doesn't have all the answers. People are drawn to that openness because it feels safe, genuine, and rare. Where pride builds walls, humility builds bridges, bridges that lead to opportunities pride will never even see, because pride is too busy protecting its own image to notice them. This openness makes others want to help you, to share their knowledge, to vouch for you in rooms you're not in. Pride may get you into a room once, but humility is what makes people want you to stay. It shows that you respect more than just yourself, that you can work alongside others without the need to overshadow them. The irony is that humility often achieves the very respect and influence pride chases, but rarely keeps. Pride demands loyalty. Humility earns it. Pride shouts its own worth. Humility allows others to speak it for you. And in a world where people remember not just what you did, but how you made them feel, humility quietly turns strangers into allies and allies into advocates, unlocking doors pride could only ever pound on from the outside. The one who plants trees knows he may never enjoy their shade. There is a rare kind of strength in doing something that may never benefit you directly, an act of quiet selflessness that looks beyond your own lifetime. Planting trees you may never sit under is the essence of legacy, investing effort now for a peace, beauty, or protection that others will inherit long after you're gone. Such acts require patience and humility. You know the work will be slow, the rewards distant, and the recognition, if it comes at all, likely belonging to someone else. Yet you do it anyway, because the value is not in the shade you'll receive, but in the shade you'll give. It's a choice to measure your life not just by what you take, but by what you leave behind. This kind of foresight demands resisting the pull of immediate gratification. The world often praises quick wins and instant results, but the greatest contributions are sometimes invisible in the moment. They live in the shelter provided to strangers, the opportunities created for those not yet born, the quiet comfort offered to people who may never know your name. The danger of our time is forgetting this truth, chasing only what benefits us now, leaving nothing for those who follow. But the one who plants without expectation understands a deeper form of wealth, the satisfaction of knowing that somewhere in the future someone will rest, thrive, or feel safe because of something you chose to do today. Even if you never feel that shade, you'll know it exists, and that's enough. Regret is the echo of ignored wisdom. Regret doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's the voice you chose not to hear, returning long after the moment has passed. Somewhere before the mistake, there was a warning, a gut feeling, a quiet hesitation, a piece of advice you brushed aside. At the time, ignoring it felt easier, safer, or more exciting. But once the choice is made and the consequences arrive, that silence voice begins to echo louder than ever. It's not just the outcome that hurts. It's the knowledge that you could have avoided it. Regret stings because it proves you knew better at some level. Maybe you convinced yourself the risk was worth it, or that the signs weren't clear enough. Maybe you thought you had more time, but in hindsight, the wisdom you ignored feels painfully obvious, and the cost of not listening becomes a weight you carry. The echo of regret is relentless because it doesn't just remind you of the past, it questions your judgment in the present. You start to wonder if you can trust yourself again, if you'll miss the signs next time too. But hidden inside that ache is the very lesson you once refused, the reminder to pause, to listen, to trust the signals that whisper before life shouts. Ignored wisdom never disappears, it waits, and when it comes back as regret, it brings the full force of the truth you didn't want to face, until facing it is no longer a choice, but the only way forward. Love grows in the soil of patience. Love doesn't bloom in an instant. It's not the flash of infatuation or the rush of early passion. It's a living thing, and like all living things, it needs time, care, and the right conditions to take root. Patience is the soil where trust deepens, where understanding unfolds, and where two imperfect people can grow alongside each other without the constant pressure to be flawless from the start. Without patience, love becomes fragile, easily shaken by misunderstandings, mistakes, or the slow seasons when emotions feel less intense. Impatience demands perfection now, turning small flaws into deal breakers and turning every delay into disappointment. But patience allows room for growth. It accepts that love is built as much in quiet days as in passionate ones, and that true connection is forged in the space between conflicts, where forgiveness and grace can take hold. Patience makes room for people to reveal themselves fully, without fear of being discarded for their rough edges. It creates the safety to be honest, the courage to be vulnerable, and the freedom to evolve together instead of apart. It understands that storms will come and seasons will change, but roots planted in patient soil grow strong enough to hold fast through all of it. Love that is rushed may burn brightly, but it rarely lasts. Love that is nurtured patiently deepens into something far greater than the initial spark, a steady flame that doesn't just survive the years, but grows warmer, stronger, and more beautiful because it was given the time to truly take root. What is taken in anger is kept with regret. Anger can feel like a surge of power, a force that justifies action in the moment. It pushes you to grab, to strike, to claim something you believe you're owed, or to take simply because you want to hurt. In the heat of that emotion, reason fades, and all that matters is the release. But when the fire burns out, what you're left holding feels different. What seemed like victory in rage often becomes a weight of shame once clarity returns. Anger is impulsive. It thinks only of the now. It doesn't calculate the long shadow your choices will cast. You may take words you can't unsay, possessions you have no right to, or opportunities you force through at someone else's expense. And while the anger fades quickly, the consequences do not. You're left with the knowledge that what you hold wasn't earned in fairness. It was seized in a moment when emotion drowned out judgment. The worst regret comes not just from the harm you've caused others, but from the damage you've done to yourself. You can't undo the look in someone's eyes after you've crossed a line, and you can't unlive the moment when you became someone you never thought you'd be. The things taken in anger carry a stain, one you feel every time you remember how you got them. And even if no one else sees it, you do. What was won in a heartbeat of rage can follow you for years, not as a prize, but as a reminder of the cost of losing control. The hardest prison to escape is your own mind. Walls of stone can be scaled, doors can be unlocked, chains can be broken, but the barriers built inside your own head are far more difficult to dismantle. These prisons are made of fear, self-doubt, regret, and the beliefs you've repeated to yourself so many times they feel like truth. You carry them everywhere, unseen by others, but as real and confining as any cell. The mind can trap you with memories that replay like endless loops, keeping you chained to moments you can't change. It can whisper that you're not ready, not worthy, not capable, until you believe it so completely that you stop trying. These walls are built quietly, one thought at a time, until you no longer see them as walls. You see them as the limits of your reality. The danger is that this prison is self-maintaining. You become both inmate and guard, reinforcing the bars with every excuse, every avoidance, every surrender to fear. No one else has the key because no one else built it. And that's what makes it so hard to leave. You must first realize you're the one holding the lock. Breaking free means challenging the thoughts you've treated as law, stepping into the unknown without waiting for certainty, and dismantling the lies your mind has fed you for years. It's a slow escape, done in steps rather than leaps. But with each one, you reclaim a little more space until one day you see it. The door was never truly locked. You just had to decide to walk through it. Those who rush miss the treasures hidden on the path. The faster you move, the narrower your vision becomes. In the urgency to reach the next goal, the next milestone, the next better place, you overlook the quiet riches scattered along the way, moments, lessons, and connections that can't be found once you've sped past them. Rushing may get you somewhere faster, but it often leaves you arriving empty-handed. Life's most valuable treasures rarely announce themselves with fanfare. They're tucked inside unplanned conversations, small acts of kindness, failures that teach you more than success ever could, and pauses that give you clarity you didn't know you needed. But when you're in a hurry, these things register as obstacles or delays, not the very gems that make the journey worth taking. Rushing is often fueled by the belief that the destination will make you happy, that once you get there, you'll finally be fulfilled. But the truth is, the destination is only a moment. The path is where the shaping happens, where you become someone capable of holding the joy you're chasing. Skip the path, and you may reach the place you dreamed of, only to find you aren't ready for it. The treasures are not just in where you end up, but in who you become on the way there. And that becoming doesn't happen in the blur of a sprint. It happens in the moments you take to breathe, to notice, to live fully where your feet are now. Slow down, and you'll see the gold that rushing would have left buried. The strong protect, the weak exploit. True strength has nothing to prove. Those who possess it, whether in power, knowledge, or character, use it as a shield, not a weapon. They step forward when others are threatened, carry burdens that aren't theirs, and stand between danger and those who cannot defend themselves. Their worth isn't measured in how many they can dominate, but in how many they can keep safe. Exploitation, on the other hand, is the refuge of the weak. Those who lack real strength grasp for control through manipulation, deceit, and the abuse of whatever advantage they can find. They prey on trust, on kindness, on the vulnerabilities of others, not because they are powerful, but because they fear their own inadequacy. Exploitation is cowardice in disguise. It hides behind cunning because it cannot stand on courage. The difference lies in motive. The strong act from security. They don't need to take from others to feel whole. Protecting doesn't diminish them. It affirms their identity. The weak exploit because they see others as resources to be drained, not lives to be valued. They mistake taking for winning, never realizing it's proof of their own emptiness. You can see it in quiet moments as much as in crises. Who steps in when it costs them something, and who steps over others when they see an opening. Strength shows in sacrifice, in the willingness to risk for someone else's good. Exploitation shows in the hunger to gain at someone else's expense. One leaves a legacy of safety, the other leaves only a trail of harm. The wisest journey is inward. The world will tell you to chase outward, more success, more possessions, more recognition. But the deepest truths, the ones that change how you see everything, aren't found on distant horizons. They're buried inside you, waiting in the quiet spaces you rarely visit. The journey inward is the most difficult because there are no maps, no applause, and no one else to blame when you face what you find. This path demands courage of a different kind. Outward battles are fought against visible opponents. Inward battles are fought against illusions you've carried for years, false identities, buried wounds, fears disguised as ambition. It's the peeling away of layers you've built to protect yourself, only to realize some of them have been your cage. As you walk deeper, you begin to see the patterns that have shaped your choices, the beliefs you inherited without question, the stories you tell yourself to feel safe. Some of what you find will be painful, parts of yourself you've ignored or denied, but these truths are the raw materials for growth. The inward journey doesn't promise comfort, but it offers something better: alignment. When you understand yourself, you move through the world with clarity. Your choices are cleaner, your relationships more honest, and your sense of direction no longer depends on the noise outside. All other journeys end when you arrive. The inward one never does. Each step takes you closer, not to a destination, but to the unshakable knowing that everything you've been searching for has been within you all along. The hardest person to lead is yourself. It's easy to believe leadership is about guiding others, setting direction, inspiring action, making decisions that move people forward. But the most difficult leadership you will ever face is the one you practice in the mirror. Leading yourself requires discipline when no one is watching, honesty when it's easier to lie, and the courage to make choices that your comfort will fight against. Self-leadership means being both the commander and the soldier, the visionary and the worker. You must set your own standards and then meet them. Hold yourself accountable without excuses and push forward when no applause is coming. It's making the hard call to do what's right for your growth, even when every instinct tells you to take the easier road. The challenge lies in the silence. There's no one to check you when you drift, no one to push you when you stall. The same mind that must give direction is also the one tempted to procrastinate, avoid, and rationalize. And that's why it's harder than leading others. You can't inspire yourself with empty speeches, because deep down, you know whether you mean them. Those who master self-leadership carry a strength that shows everywhere else. They don't wait for permission to improve, and they don't rely on external pressure to move. They know that if they can keep themselves disciplined, focused, and accountable, leading others becomes a natural extension. Because if you can't direct your own steps, you'll never truly guide anyone else's. The moment you stop learning, you start dying. Life is movement, and learning is the heartbeat that keeps it alive. The moment you believe you've seen enough, know enough, or experienced enough, something inside you begins to wither. Growth slows, curiosity fades, the edges of your world begin to close in, not because the world has shrunk, but because you've stopped walking toward what's new. Learning isn't just about gaining skills or collecting facts. It's about staying awake to life. Every book, conversation, and experience has the power to stretch you, to sharpen you, to show you a piece of the world you didn't know existed. Without that, your mind becomes stagnant, replaying the same thoughts in a loop, mistaking familiarity for truth. The danger is that comfort feels safe. It's easier to stay in the circle of what you already understand than to risk being wrong, to risk feeling like a beginner again. But without challenge, without discomfort, you slowly trade vitality for routine. You wake up one day realizing years have passed and you are exactly where you were, except the world has moved on without you. Those who keep learning stay alive in ways that have nothing to do with age. Their minds stay flexible, their perspectives expand, and their eyes remain open to possibilities others overlook. They understand that the mind, like the body, atrophies without use, so they feed it, not to feel superior, but to stay connected to the pulse of life itself. Because the day you stop seeking, questioning, and exploring is the day you stop truly living. Don't trade peace for applause. The roar of approval can be intoxicating. Every cheer, every compliment, every nod of validation, feeding the part of you that craves to be seen and admired. But applause is fleeting, And when it becomes the currency you chase, you'll spend your most valuable possession to keep earning it, your peace. The moment you start living for the crowd, you hand them the power to decide when you're worthy, when you're enough, and when you're no longer worth clapping for. Sacrificing peace for applause often begins subtly. You take on commitments you don't want just to be praised for your dedication. You say yes when you mean no because the approval feels safer than the disappointment you fear. You perform instead of living, adjusting yourself to match what you think will keep the noise going. But every round of applause you earn this way comes with a cost: exhaustion, resentment, and a growing emptiness that applause can't fill. Peace is quiet, and that's why it's harder to notice when it's slipping away. Applause is loud, urgent, and public, making it feel more important in the moment. But once the lights go out and the crowd goes home, you're left alone with yourself. And if you've traded away your peace, that silence can feel suffocating. Choosing peace means being willing to disappoint others to protect what steadies you. It means letting some applause go unearned so you can keep the stillness that keeps you whole. Because the truth is, the world forgets its heroes quickly, but you have to live with yourself forever.